Archaeologists discover a bizarre ancient mummy. DNA results shock the world. Hello, and welcome to the latest video on the Ancient History channel. Dear viewers, did you know that human history, when examined closely, has never been a calm and unchanging picture? Hidden behind pages that seem long closed are countless secrets still lying dormant, waiting for the day they are awakened. Every archaeological site, every layer of earth carefully uncovered, carries not only the marks of time, but also conceals stories that make people today shudder in deep reflection. There are discoveries that leave us in awe of the greatness of our ancestors, but there are also findings that give researchers headaches or even haunt them because of what they reveal about the past. Have you ever wondered what truly happened to the civilizations that vanished? Are those crumbling structures merely ruins, or are they warnings sent to us from thousands of years ago? The deeper humans dig into the earth, the more they realize that history is not made up of glory alone, but also filled with fear, brutality, and mysteries beyond imagination. And so, in today's journey, we will travel back through time together, following the traces of some of the most horrifying and mysterious archaeological discoveries ever recorded. These stories will not only send chills down your spine, but will also force us to re-examine history from a different perspective, one that is deeper and more cautious. If you are someone who is curious about the past, who enjoys the thrill of watching each piece of the historical puzzle slowly revealed, then stay with us until the end of this video, because what you are about to hear may forever change the way you view human history. Now, without taking up any more of your time, let's move on to our very first discovery. Strange human remains in a sealed cave in Mexico. Hidden among the ancient geological layers of Mexico, a recent discovery has sent shockwaves through the archaeological community, a secret concealed by time, darkness, and solid rock. It was not a glittering golden temple or a dazzling treasure hoard, but a tiny cave entrance, less than about 1.6 feet high, that concealed within it extraordinary stories about the pre-Hispanic Maya civilization, a brilliant and mysterious culture that has long been the subject of intense academic debate and human fascination. The story began with what seemed to be an entirely ordinary project, the expansion of a road between two ancient excavation zones, carried out by Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History, INAH, on behalf of the Federal Ministry of Culture. However, as archaeologists were digging, they unexpectedly struck a strange stone slab decorated with a seashell firmly attached to its surface. Beneath this stone, a narrow passageway, nearly buried by the passage of time, revealed an entirely different world. A small cave divided into at least two chambers of modest size, measuring roughly 10 feet in length and about 6.5 feet in width, while the average height was only around 1.6 feet. It was a cramped, dark, damp, and suffocating space, yet it served as the final resting place of people who had once lived, breathed, and existed thousands of years ago. The moment the sealing stone was removed, the archaeologists were confronted with a scene that left the entire team speechless. A human skeleton, with the lower body lying outside the cave and the upper body extending deep inside. As they moved further into the cave, the research team, coordinated by Jose, identified at least 8 human burial areas, most of them adults. These remains were preserved in near-perfect condition thanks to the sealed environment, stable humidity, and lack of direct sunlight. Ideal conditions for preserving organic remains over centuries. But the story did not end there. During the investigation, researchers Geronimo Aviles and Christian Sanchez discovered something even more unusual. Inside the narrow cave, there were not only human remains, but also fossils and bones from at least 9 species of mammals, ranging from vampire bats and domestic dogs to unusual birds and reptiles. Most strikingly, there were also remains of fish, including tiger sharks, raising a major question. How could shark bones end up in a burial site located deep underground? The answer remains unknown, but one prevailing hypothesis suggests that these bones may have been deliberately placed there by the ancient Maya as offerings or for use in spiritual or ritual ceremonies. Some animal bones even show signs of cutting and modification, as if they were once used as tools or crafted objects. Archaeologists also uncovered numerous ancient needles made from bone, along with countless ceramic fragments, shards from everyday utensils, ritual objects, or possibly vessels used to hold liquids for religious ceremonies. The greatest challenge for the research team was not only scientific, but also physical. The cave was far too narrow for an adult to move comfortably. High temperatures, intense humidity, and the presence of insects made every step exhausting. However, they were not alone in this struggle. With the help of modern technology, ranging from high-resolution cameras and laser scanners to 3D modeling software, archaeologists were able to document even the smallest details of the cave, from the exact position of each bone fragment to decorative traces worn down by time. Their ultimate goal is not only to understand what once took place inside this cave, but also to preserve the entire archaeological ecosystem for future generations. This discovery not only opens a new chapter in humanity's understanding of the Maya civilization, but also serves as powerful proof that the past is never truly dead. It is merely waiting to be uncovered and retold, through the patient hands and passionate minds of those who believe that every stone, every bone, and every drop of sweat brings us one step closer to the light of knowledge. And this mysterious cave, though less than 1.6 feet high, is still enough to open a doorway into the deep world of history, where ancient voices continue to whisper, waiting to be heard. What do you think about this discovery? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. 3 nested Egyptian mummies. In 1908, archaeologists excavated the mummy of a young girl estimated to be between 14 and 17 years old, who lived during the late period of ancient Egypt, and brought it back for study. However, what astonished scientists most was what they discovered inside her body. This mummy did not belong to just one young girl. It concealed 2 deeply moving mysteries. The girl's death, like a heartbreaking story from the past, was gradually revealed through a series of unexpected findings. When archaeologists opened her coffin, they found not only the girl's mummy, but also the remains of an incomplete fetus, carefully wrapped. In addition, placental tissue was found between her legs, further strengthening the hypothesis that the girl had died during childbirth. Yet the discoveries that followed made the story even more complex and mysterious. When scientists examined the abdominal cavity of the mummy, they found that the fetus's skull was lodged in the birth canal, confirming that the young girl's death was the result of an extremely difficult and traumatic labor. But the mystery did not end there. More than a century later, researchers from George Washington University continued to search for answers and unexpectedly uncovered a second mystery. A second fetus, intact, located inside the chest cavity of the mummy. This was an unprecedented discovery, as this young girl's mummy represents the first confirmed case of twins ever found in the history of archaeology. The second fetus was not originally located in the womb. Instead, due to the decomposition of the mother's body after death, it had migrated upward into the chest. This discovery was made possible through the use of modern medical imaging technology, which allowed scientists to examine the interior of the mummy in great detail without damaging it. The unusual position of the second fetus raised questions about changes in the body's structure after death. Researchers concluded that damage to the diaphragm and other soft tissues allowed the fetus to move out of the abdominal cavity and into the chest. This finding further highlights the fragility of life in the ancient world, especially for young women. This Egyptian girl, who stood only about 5 feet tall and weighed approximately 99 to 121 pounds, faced unimaginable challenges during pregnancy and childbirth at such a young age. The combination of a small, underdeveloped body and a twin pregnancy ultimately led to her tragic death. Twin pregnancies have always been considered extremely high risk, and for an adolescent whose body was not yet fully developed, childbirth could easily become fatal. Notably, this young girl may have been among the earliest individuals to endure the brutal reality of childbirth before her body was physically prepared for motherhood. The injustice of early marriage and the burden of motherhood at such a young age caused many women in ancient times to face death under painful and unavoidable circumstances. Twin pregnancies, in particular, greatly increased the risks for both mother and unborn children. The story of this young girl stands as a powerful testament to the dangers women faced in the past. A perfectly preserved 9,000-year-old mummy, the astonishing secret of an Ice Age bison. There are archaeological discoveries that leave people stunned, not because of their grandeur, but because they feel as though the past has just let out a quiet breath right before our eyes. The mummified bison found beneath the permafrost of Siberia is one such story. A creature that lay motionless for 9,000 years, seemingly erased by time, has now re-emerged in near-perfect condition, carrying with it the secrets of a distant ice age. Isn't that fascinating? The discovery took place in 2011, during a journey along a lake in northern Siberia, when members of the Yde Girl tribe unexpectedly noticed something unusual protruding from the frozen ground. As the ice was gradually removed, the body of a steppe bison came into view, an ancient animal that once roamed vast open plains. For nearly 9 millennia, the remains of this animal had been miraculously preserved by ice, as if time itself had forgotten its existence. The steppe bison is the ancestor of modern bison species that still exist today in North America and parts of Northern Europe. However, this ancient bison is valuable not only for its evolutionary significance, but also for its remarkably well-preserved condition. As a result, shortly after its discovery, the mummy was transported to the Ukrainian Academy of Sciences in Siberia, where researchers began a detailed scientific analysis. You might wonder how a mummy could be preserved so perfectly. The answer lies in the extreme climate of northern Siberia, where permafrost has effectively acted as a massive natural freezer. Thanks to these conditions, the skull, skin, fur, and many other parts of the bison retained their original form. Even more astonishing, scientists confirmed that the brain and several internal organs were still preserved in an incredible state after 9,000 years. Of course, time did leave its mark. Some parts of the body had shrunk due to natural aging processes that occurred over thousands of years. According to researcher Olga Potapova, finding a nearly intact mummy of a large animal is extremely rare. In most cases, mummified remains found in North America or Siberia consist of only partial bodies, as prolonged exposure to ice usually destroys soft tissues. This is precisely why the steppe bison mummy is considered exceptionally rare, almost like an original snapshot of an Ice Age animal. Another remarkable detail emerged during close examination. Scientists determined that the bison died at approximately 4 years of age. The cause of death was not hunting or an accident, but severe starvation. This conclusion was supported by the near absence of fat around the abdominal area, indicating that environmental conditions at the time were extremely harsh, even for large, powerful animals. Therefore, this discovery not only helps us better understand the biology of ancient bison, but also opens a window into the environmental conditions of the Ice Age. A horrifying room reveals the miserable lives of slaves in the Roman Empire. Pompeii, an ancient Roman city now reduced to ruins buried in history, lies deep within the Campania region of Italy, near the city of Naples. This land, once a symbol of Roman prosperity and civilization, has now become a place that holds terrifying and heartbreaking secrets from the past. Pompeii and its sister city, Herculaneum, suffered the same fate when they were completely destroyed and buried by the violent eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. Over the course of 2 horrifying days and nights, layers of ash and pumice covered every corner of Pompeii, crushing daily life and human activity under the overwhelming force of nature. The city was buried beneath approximately 59 feet of ash and pumice, becoming a dark and chilling tableau of destruction and the cold passage of time. For the next 1,700 years, these ruins lay silently forgotten, lost to history, until a chance discovery reignited global attention in 1748. When archaeologists accidentally unearthed the remains, they opened a dark doorway into the ancient world, a realm filled with mystery and terror, where time had frozen the final moments of life. Pompeii, once a symbol of civilization, became a stark reminder of humanity's helplessness in the face of nature's fury. More specifically, during years of research at Pompeii, archaeologists uncovered a room believed to offer rare insight into the daily lives of slaves in the ancient Roman city. Discovered amid the debris of the 79 AD volcanic eruption, this room was located just a few steps away from where archaeologists had previously found the well-preserved remains of a ceremonial chariot. This space served not only as living quarters, but also as a storage area, offering valuable clues about the lives of enslaved people in the distant past. When first uncovered, the room had only a single high window and no wall decorations of any kind. Inside the room were 2 wooden beds, measuring approximately 5.6 feet and 4.6 feet in length, suggesting that a family with a young child once lived there. Nearby, a wooden chest was found containing various metal objects and textiles described as resembling parts of a horse harness. In addition, a wooden steering component from a chariot was discovered. Several jars and personal belongings were stored beneath the beds, and 8 ancient amphorae, used for storage, were found clustered in a corner of the room. Furthermore, the excavation uncovered the skeletal remains of 2 individuals, believed to be a wealthy man and his male slave. Both died from volcanic ash while attempting to escape the disaster. These discoveries provide invaluable insight into the lives and tragic fates of people living in ancient Roman times, shedding further light on the culture, social structure, and harsh realities of that era. The oldest fossil of a giant bird, with a 21 feet wingspan. My friend, have you ever imagined that long before humans appeared, Earth's skies once belonged to a gigantic bird with a wingspan reaching about 21 feet, capable of gliding over the vast oceans for weeks at a time with little need to land? If not, then let me take you to the next remarkable discovery, one that will send you traveling back in time to the Cenozoic era, where we encounter the Pelagornithid, one of the most astonishing birds ever to exist. Did you know that the oldest fossil of this giant bird was discovered in Antarctica during the 1980s? That detail alone is enough to spark curiosity, because today, Antarctica is a frozen, hostile land with almost no complex life. Yet around 50 million years ago, this region was home to massive creatures, including pelagornithids, an extinct family of seabirds. Pelagornithids were twice the size of the largest living bird today, the wandering albatross, which has a wingspan of only about 11.5 feet. With a record wingspan of up to 21 feet, Pelagornithids are considered the birds with the largest wingspan of the entire Cenozoic era. They soared above Earth's oceans for at least 60 million years, living a lifestyle similar to modern albatrosses, but on a scale far beyond human imagination. Interestingly, Pelagornithids appeared not long after the mass extinction event around 65 million years ago, when the dinosaurs vanished and life on Earth began to recover. A 50-million-year-old fossilized foot bone shows that these enormous birds quickly came to dominate the skies and oceans as Earth's ecosystem stabilized once again. Later, another fossil containing part of a jawbone, dated to around 40 million years ago, provided additional crucial pieces to the puzzle of this extraordinary species. Pelagornithids are also known by the haunting nickname bony-toothed birds. Along their jaws were sharp, tooth-like protrusions made of bone, though they were not true teeth. These false teeth played a vital role, allowing the birds to grip slippery prey such as squid and fish when diving from great heights into the sea. Just imagine a massive bird, with a wingspan stretching dozens of feet, flying continuously over the open ocean for weeks, descending only briefly to snatch its prey before resuming its endless journey through the skies. Of course, Pelagornithids were not the only rulers of the air during that time. Another giant bird, known as the teratorn, resembling a colossal hawk with a nearly comparable wingspan, also dominated the skies. The coexistence of these aerial monsters reveals that the Cenozoic era was truly a golden age of giant birds. The Pelagornithid fossil described by researchers from the University of California, Riverside was excavated on Seymour Island, off the northern tip of the Antarctic Peninsula, and later transferred to the University of California Museum of Paleontology in Berkeley. It was not until 2015, when researcher Cloes re-examined the museum's collections, that this specimen received serious attention. Based on the original notes of Professor Judd Case from Eastern Washington University, Cloes realized that the fossilized leg bone belonged to a much older geological formation than previously believed. This meant the fossil was approximately 50 million years old, not 40 million years as earlier estimates had suggested. It is also the largest Pelagornithid specimen ever discovered. The final members of the Pelagornithid family disappeared around 2.5 million years ago as Earth's climate gradually cooled and the Ice Age began. From that moment on, the skies above the oceans permanently lost their giant winged rulers, leaving behind only fossils to tell us the story of a glorious era that has long since faded into the depths of the past. The perfect cut on the 10,000-year-old Al-Nazla rock that no one can explain. In the middle of the arid deserts of Saudi Arabia, there stands a rock formation that causes anyone seeing it for the first time to stop, squint, and ask, how could this possibly happen? This is the Al-Nazla rock, located at the Tiye oasis, split cleanly in half by a razor-straight cut so sharp and precise that many compare it to the work of modern laser technology, despite the fact that it has existed for thousands, perhaps even tens of thousands of years. Anyone interested in the ancient world is likely familiar with Tiye Oasis, a site long steeped in mystery throughout Middle Eastern history. According to archaeologists, the earliest written records of this region date back to the 8th century BC. Tiye was once a vital link along the overland trade route connecting the Red Sea coast of the Arabian Peninsula with the Nile Valley. Amid a landscape once bustling with merchants, travelers, and ancient civilizations, the Al-Nazla rock has stood silently, an unsolved riddle frozen in time. The formation actually consists of two massive sandstone blocks, each approximately 23 feet tall and weighing hundreds of tons, balanced delicately atop smaller natural stone pedestals beneath them. Yet what has made Al-Nazla famous worldwide is not its size, but the astonishingly perfect vertical cut that divides the rock in two. The split is straight and smooth beyond belief, as if someone had carefully measured and sliced it using an ultra-precise modern tool. The Al-Nazla rock was first documented by explorer Charles Huver in 1883. Since then, countless scientists, geologists, archaeologists, and enthusiasts of ancient mysteries have attempted to answer the same question: when did this cut form, and what caused it? To this day, no explanation has gained universal agreement. One striking detail is that the front face of the rock, where the famous cut is visible, is remarkably flat and even, while the backside is rough and irregular, showing no sign of an equally clean division. The age of the rock is estimated to be up to 10,000 years old, making the mystery even more difficult to explain. Scientists have proposed several hypotheses. The most widely accepted is a natural explanation, suggesting that Al-Nazla sits directly on a geological fault line. When the ground beneath it shifted, the rock cracked along its weakest point. Over thousands of years, desert winds carrying fine sand gradually eroded the crack, smoothing its surface until a rough fracture became an almost perfectly straight cut. Another theory suggests that the split is the result of a natural joint or fracture plane within the sandstone. Such joints can sometimes form with unusually straight lines, even without human intervention or major tectonic movement. There is also speculation that repeated freeze-thaw cycles during ancient climatic periods caused water to seep into tiny cracks, freeze, expand, and gradually widen them along a fixed vertical line, ultimately producing the split seen today. Alongside scientific explanations, many people believe Al-Nazla may be evidence of a lost ancient civilization with technological capabilities far beyond what we currently understand. Some even suggest extraterrestrial involvement, arguing that the vertical separation appears too perfect to be the result of chance alone. Adding to the mystery are the stone pedestals beneath the rock. These mushroom-shaped formations are fairly common in desert environments and typically form when strong winds near ground level erode the base of a rock faster than the top or through ancient glacial activity. Thanks to this structure, the two halves of Al-Nazla have remained standing for thousands of years with almost no visible shifting. The Yde Girl, the world's most notorious mummy and its unsolved mysteries. A single body lying silently beneath a peat bog can tell the story of an entire blood-soaked tragedy from the past, and the story of the Yde Girl is exactly that: quiet, haunting, and lingering for more than 2 millennia. The story began on May 12, 1897, when two laborers were dredging peat from the Stuyveen bog near the village of Yde in the Netherlands, and suddenly uncovered a strange corpse. The body was incomplete, its skin darkened by the bog, and its reddish hair strikingly vivid. The sight was chilling to anyone who witnessed it. As soon as the body was removed from the bog, officials quickly realized this was no ordinary death. A knotted cord was still tightly wrapped around the victim's neck, accompanied by a stab wound near the collarbone. The limbs were damaged, the teeth were missing, and half of the hair had been mysteriously cut short. Taken together, these details formed a picture of extreme violence, leading many to believe the girl had been brutally murdered. On May 21, 1897, the body was transferred to the Drents Museum of History and Art. However, the victim's identity remained shrouded in mystery. The damaged limbs, missing teeth, and partially shaved hair all suggested punishment rather than an accidental death. At the time, however, science lacked the tools needed to answer such profound questions. It was not until the 1940s, with the development of radiocarbon dating, that a path towards solving the mystery began to emerge. The true breakthrough came in 1992, when Professor Richard Neve of the University of Manchester conducted a CT scan of the skull. The results revealed that the body belonged to a girl about 16 years old, confirmed by the absence of wisdom teeth. She stood only a little over 3.3 feet tall and suffered from severe scoliosis, which would have left her physically weakened. Her right foot was abnormally swollen, likely causing her to limp throughout her short life. Further analysis showed that she died sometime between 54 BC and AD 128 during the early Roman period. Remarkably, tannic acid in the bog preserved her body for nearly 2,000 years. This oxygen-poor, acidic environment transformed the Yde Girl into a natural mummy, retaining enough detail for scientists to reconstruct both her life and her death. In 1994, when her face was reconstructed, the image spread rapidly around the world, captivating and deeply unsettling millions. Yet the most important question remains unanswered. Why was the Yde Girl killed? Dr. Roy van Beek of Wageningen University proposed two main hypotheses. The first suggests that people cast into bogs were lawbreakers, executed as a form of community punishment. The second, and more widely accepted theory, argues that her death was part of a ritual human sacrifice intended to appease supernatural forces and ensure agricultural prosperity. By 2019, based on landscape and terrain studies, Dr. Van Beek and his colleagues suggested the possibility of a personal motive. The girl may have lived in a settlement near the slopes of Yde Hill, yet her body was left in a small, shallow bog approximately 0.6 miles away. Another controversial detail involves her cut hair. The Drents Museum confirmed that the hair was cut by villagers in the 19th century, but historically, cutting a woman's hair was a common medieval punishment for adultery. However, with no clear evidence of a husband or a specific crime, the theory of human sacrifice continues to carry significant weight. To this day, the death of the Yde Girl remains an unsolved mystery. Her body is now preserved at the Drents Museum in Assen, the Netherlands, serving as a chilling reminder that history is written not only in victories and glory, but also in the quiet suffering of forgotten individuals, buried in mud and lost to time for thousands of years. Ruins of an ancient Roman temple reveal the strategic role of Sarsina. Amid the rugged Apennine Mountains in Italy's Emilia-Romagna region lies a small town called Sarsina, where life moves slowly among fewer than 3,000 residents. Here, quiet roads, flocks of sheep grazing leisurely, and a natural landscape so beautiful it seems untouched by time are everyday sights. For visitors, Sarsina is an ideal destination for hiking, birdwatching, and enjoying a rare, simple pace of life that still survives in modern Europe. Yet few people realize that behind this peaceful facade lies a once glorious past. Sarsina is not only the birthplace of Plautus, the famous playwright of ancient Rome, but was also once an important defensive outpost of the Roman Empire. For centuries, the town played a strategic role in the mountainous region, controlling trade routes and serving as a key link between central and northern Italy. Over time, however, this history seemed to fade away, buried beneath layers of soil and collective memory. Today, the people of Sarsina still cherish their slow-paced lifestyle, but they also look forward to new opportunities. Plans to develop an area on the outskirts of town, including a supermarket, a fitness center, and a playground, were seen as signs of a brighter future. Everything appeared to be moving forward smoothly, until December 2022, when construction workers began digging the foundations and unexpectedly uncovered something no one had anticipated. Beneath what seemed like ordinary ground lay the remains of an ancient Roman temple, dating back to the 1st century BC. This discovery immediately altered the original plans and sent a wave of excitement through the archaeological community. By early July of the following year, the first images of this underground treasure were revealed, opening a new chapter of history that had been buried for more than 2,000 years. The excavated structure covers an area of approximately 6,210 square feet, consisting of large sandstone blocks laid horizontally, interspersed with finely crafted marble slabs. Researchers identified the structure as the podium of a temple, which once supported an imposing system of columns and walls above. Although only part of it has been uncovered so far, the scale and quality of the materials suggest that this was far from an ordinary religious building. According to researcher Peraglia, the discovery of a major temple at the heart of an important Roman city further reinforces Sarsina's strategic significance within the empire. In ancient times, the town was not only a defensive stronghold but also a center of commerce, social life, and religious activity for the surrounding region. The temple likely hosted major ceremonies, drawing residents and merchants from neighboring areas. Sarsina's location helps explain its importance. The town was built in a key mountainous area near the Tuscan border and faced the Savio River, an important waterway linking cities in central and northern Roman territories. This position made Sarsina a crucial node in the empire's transportation, commercial, and military networks. For archaeologists, the temple's discovery is more than the unearthing of a single structure. It opens the possibility that many other unique remains may still lie hidden beneath Sarsina's soil. These findings could allow researchers to study population patterns, social life, and urban development during the Roman era in much greater detail. For local residents, the story of the Roman temple has transformed the way they view their small town. A golden treasure on the ghost ship asleep for centuries suddenly rises along the Danube River. Sometimes history does not remain quietly confined to books or museums. Instead, it suddenly resurfaces from the depths of a river at the very moment people least expect it. The story of the treasure discovered along the banks of the Danube River in Hungary is one such moment. As a severe drought swept across Europe, water levels in the Danube dropped to record lows, exposing objects that had been buried for hundreds of years, as if the past itself were trying to speak. The story began quite by chance, when an amateur archaeologist surveying the riverbank near the town of Yde, about 15.5 miles from Budapest, noticed strange objects protruding from the dried mud. These were not ordinary fragments of broken pottery, but ancient coins, weapons, and even a cannon. The discovery was quickly reported to experts, and within a short time, Hungarian archaeologists arrived to take over the site. Everyone involved understood that they were facing something extraordinary. According to Gabor Gulyas, who took part directly in the excavation, the reason the treasure revealed itself was not mere luck, but a direct consequence of the extreme drought. As the river receded, artifacts that had long rested deep beneath the Danube became visible once again, serving as a reminder that nature can sometimes act as an unwitting archaeologist. Initial analysis suggests that the treasure belonged to a large 18th century merchant ship. The vessel may have met with disaster, broken apart, and sunk into the turbulent waters of the Danube, taking its valuable cargo with it. Over time, layers of silt and mud covered the wreck, turning it into a true ghost ship, hidden beneath the river for generations. The coins recovered span the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, indicating that the ship carried an exceptionally large and valuable load. Most remarkable are several rare coins from the reign of Pope Clement XII and King Louis XIV of France. Some of the coins were minted from 22-karat gold, nearly pure, highlighting the immense wealth and importance of this vessel within historic European trade networks. In addition to the coins, archaeologists uncovered finely decorated daggers, personal weapons, and even cannons, suggesting that the ship was not only a trading vessel but also had to defend itself against pirates or other threats along the river. So far, what has been found is believed to be only the tip of the iceberg. Archaeologists suspect that the shipwreck itself may still lie somewhere near the discovery site. The search is being carried out with great care, because locating the remains of the vessel would make this one of the most significant river archaeology discoveries in Hungary in decades. Interestingly, this is not the first time drought has brought unexpected gifts from the past. Not long ago, along the banks of the Elbe River in the Czech Republic, an ancient stone engraved with the haunting message, "If you see me, weep," reappeared. It turned out to be a drought warning marker dating back to 1616, erected to remind people of the hardships that would follow when river levels dropped dangerously low. Looking at these discoveries, it is hard not to wonder, beneath the familiar rivers of today, how many untold stories are still hidden? And when the waters recede again, in what other ways might history rise once more? Brick structures pierced with holes, scattered across the desert. In today's modern world, where digital maps and GPS navigation systems are so common that a few taps can tell you exactly where you are. It is hard to imagine the fear of getting lost in a place with no landmarks, especially in an environment as unforgiving as the desert. Yet if you travel to the northern region of Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, you will encounter a strange and haunting sight. Small brick structures scattered sparsely and alone amid vast seas of golden sand. At first glance, they look like forgotten ruins of a long-lost civilization. In reality, however, they are powerful evidence of humanity's remarkable ingenuity and ability to adapt to nature, and in particular, a testament to the intelligence of one of the oldest nomadic communities on Earth, the Bedouin people. Although many of these brick structures have partially collapsed over time, they still tell the story of a past defined by clever thinking and resilient survival. These structures were not permanent homes, rest stops, or storage buildings. According to research by archaeologists and anthropologists, these modest constructions were actually desert beacons, navigation structures that served a purpose similar to lighthouses at sea, which once saved countless ships during violent storms. The story begins with the unique way of life of the Bedouins, Arab nomadic tribes who have lived for thousands of years across vast desert regions, including Jordan, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Yemen, and Egypt. They are often referred to as people of the desert. In fact, the word Bedouin is an anglicized form of the Arabic word bedu, which carries that exact meaning. With a history spanning millennia in harsh, arid lands, the Bedouins adapted perfectly to extreme living conditions. Severe water scarcity, extreme temperatures, and above all, the immense, featureless landscape that makes navigation extraordinarily difficult. To survive, they relied not only on endurance and experience, but also on innovative solutions, such as building these domed brick structures to serve as landmarks. These buildings were primarily constructed from local bricks. They typically have rectangular bases and domed roofs punctured with multiple ventilation holes. Each structure stands over 6.5 feet tall and is usually positioned on slopes or elevated terrain, making it visible from long distances. Notably, no two structures are exactly alike. Each differs slightly in design, materials, hole placement, and construction style, and these differences are intentional. They reflect the presence of different Bedouin groups, each with its own migration routes and territories, leaving behind their own distinctive desert beacons. So why are these structures called lighthouses of the desert? The answer lies in how they were used. In a time without detailed maps or satellite navigation, traveling across vast deserts was much like sailing across an endless ocean. A small navigational error, a sudden sandstorm, or a subtle change in terrain could cause an entire group to lose its way, or even perish. The Bedouins understood this better than anyone. That is why they built these structures at strategic locations, high, visible points that could be seen from afar. When needed, a fire could be lit inside, and the light would shine through the holes in the domed roof, creating a visual signal in the darkness or during blinding sandstorms. These simple, primitive flames carried life-saving meaning. They served as guiding lights, helping lost travelers find their way and enabling nomadic groups to stay on course during journeys spanning hundreds, even thousands of miles across the desert. These were not merely architectural structures, they were a form of indigenous technology, instinctive intelligence combined with deep knowledge of the environment, geography, and natural patterns that the Bedouins had accumulated over thousands of years of wandering. Today, even as many of these structures crumble with time, they remain standing as fragments of humanity's collective memory. They remind us that long before satellites and digital compasses existed, humans were able to conquer the harshest environments through intelligence, creativity, and extraordinary adaptability. The Bedouins' desert lighthouses are not only historical witnesses, but also messages from the past, proof that even in places where life seems impossible, humans can survive not through advanced technology, but through enduring ancient wisdom and a profound connection with nature. Quite remarkable, wouldn't you agree? A 7,000-year-old sacred site in Saudi Arabia filled with human remains and animal bones. In the vast deserts of Saudi Arabia, where today there is little more than scorching sand, dry rock, and relentless wind, archaeologists have uncovered a chilling secret. It is the secret of a 7,000-year-old sacred site, where the remains of ancient humans lie mixed with hundreds of animal bones, evoking images of long-forgotten rituals carried out as nature slowly turned its back on humanity. Inside this site, researchers discovered the remains of an adult man, estimated to have been between 30 and 40 years old, buried within a structure known as a mustatil. In Arabic, mustatil means rectangle, and true to its name, these are long, low stone structures deliberately constructed with a rectangular form. To date, more than 1,600 mustatils have been recorded across Saudi Arabia since the 1970s, though most remain buried beneath the sand and largely unexplored. What makes these structures particularly striking is that when the mustatils were built, the Arabian desert was not the harsh, barren landscape we see today. At that time, the region was a lush grassland, where elephants roamed the plains and hippos wallowed in freshwater lakes. However, as the climate shifted, rainfall decreased and the land dried out, forcing people to turn to spiritual rituals as a way to cling to life in an increasingly unforgiving environment. A study published on March 15th in the journal PLOS1 revealed crucial new details about the mustatils and the mysterious communities behind them. According to the research, the builders were members of an unnamed prehistoric cult. As environmental conditions deteriorated, they may have gathered at these sites to perform livestock sacrifice rituals, seeking protection and blessings from deities whose names are now lost to history. Archaeologist Melissa Kennedy of the University of Western Australia explained that mustatils were typically constructed with low stone walls about 4 feet high. Despite their simple exterior, the interiors were far more complex. Excavations revealed secondary walls, stone pillars, and central chambers that may have been used for feasting, communal gatherings, and formal sacrificial rituals. Participants would enter a mustatil from one end and walk a long distance, anywhere from about 65 feet to nearly 2,000 feet, to reach the opposite end. There, they would arrive at a collapsed stone platform known as the head, which housed the most sacred chamber. Inside this chamber was a beitel, a sacred stone, sometimes believed to be of meteoritic origin, regarded as a bridge between humans and the divine. The mustatil examined in this excavation lies approximately 34 miles east of the ancient city of Alula. It stretches about 460 feet long and was built from locally sourced sandstone. Surrounding the beitel, researchers uncovered more than 260 fragments of animal skulls and horns, primarily from domesticated cattle, along with remains of goats, gazelles, and other small ruminants. This evidence points to large-scale, organized sacrificial practices. Analysis of the human bones revealed signs of osteoarthritis, likely caused by prolonged physical labor. Notably, radiocarbon dating showed that the man was buried roughly 400 years after the animal sacrifices took place. This suggests that the mustatil was not used for a single brief period, but rather served as a recurring pilgrimage site across multiple generations, even after its original function may have ended. To this day, the exact purpose of the rituals performed at mustatils remains uncertain. However, many scientists believe they all centered on a shared hope: the return of rain and the renewal of the land. Investigations are ongoing, and these ancient sacred sites may ultimately help us better understand the deep connection between belief systems, survival, and early human responses to climate crisis in prehistoric times. Scientists recreated the face of an ancient Egyptian mummy. What they found was terrifying. Dear friends, ancient history has long been compared to a vast trove of mysteries. The deeper we dig, the more curious and amazed we become. Sometimes, from nothing more than a tiny fragment of bone, a faint carving on a rock wall, or a mummy lying undisturbed for thousands of years, scientists are able to unravel an entire story about the lives, power, and fate of people who once shaped the course of history. Today, thanks to remarkable advances in science and technology, figures who once seemed to exist only in books are gradually reappearing with clear, tangible faces, more vivid and relatable than ever before. A striking example came in 2020 when the scientific community captured worldwide attention by releasing reconstructed images of Queen Tiye, one of the most powerful and enigmatic women of ancient Egypt. Queen Tiye was born around 1398 BCE and died around 1338 BCE. She was the wife of Pharaoh Amenhotep III, the mother of Pharaoh Akhenaten, and the grandmother of the legendary King Tutankhamun. Merely hearing about these connections is enough to reveal just how extraordinary her status was in the flow of Egyptian history. Based on surviving images, historical records describing her facial features, and modern reconstruction technology, scientists have attempted to recreate what Queen Tiye may have looked like during her lifetime. For many years, she has been referred to as the Elder Lady, a title symbolizing beauty, wisdom, and influence. As a result, when the reconstructed images were released, many people were astonished by her sharp features and commanding, authoritative gaze. However, another debate quickly emerged. What was Queen Tiye's true skin tone, brown or white? Although no definitive answer has been agreed upon, the facial features alone were powerful enough to leave a lasting impression. Of course, any facial reconstruction is ultimately a scientific approximation. So the question remains, was Queen Tiye truly as flawlessly beautiful as history has praised her to be? This question became even more intriguing in 2011 when experts studying her mummy announced that they had discovered a small, flat, rice grain-like bump on her forehead. In other words, a small wart located directly between her eyebrows. This detail made the face of the powerful queen seem slightly less perfect than many had imagined. The discovery was noted by Spanish archaeologist Mercedes Gonzalez during her visit to the Cairo Museum. Seeing a high-resolution photograph of Queen Tiye's face, the unusual mark on her forehead appeared quite clearly. According to some hypotheses, the wart may have been caused by the human papillomavirus, HPV, a virus commonly found on facial skin. What makes this finding particularly notable is that such pathological traces are extremely rare among ancient Egyptian mummies, and Queen Tiye's case is almost unique among those documented to date. Frank Rulli, head of the Mummy Project at the University of Zurich in Switzerland, has also suggested that the foreign object on the queen's forehead could be a wart or a benign fibroma. Researchers, he said, are eager to re-examine her DNA to clarify the issue. However, not everyone agrees with this interpretation. Cairo-based Egyptologist Salima Ikram argues that the mark may have formed during the mummification process rather than having existed while Queen Tiye was alive. This very disagreement only adds to the intrigue surrounding Queen Tiye's story. Yet one thing is certain, whether she had a wart or not, there is no denying that Queen Tiye was one of the most powerful women in ancient Egypt. Throughout the 38-year reign of Pharaoh Amenhotep III, she was deeply loved and absolutely respected. The king himself once described his wife as the most elegant and sweet woman in the world, whose beauty captivated both the royal court and the people. In surviving sculptures, the image of Queen Tiye seated side by side with Pharaoh Amenhotep III says it all. It reflects not only love, but also a rare level of respect in the history of Egyptian dynasties, the respect of a powerful pharaoh for his own wife. Of course, the story of Queen Tiye is only a small piece of the vast mosaic of world archaeology. Beyond this, countless tombs remain unopened, many mummies have yet to be fully studied, and numerous historical mysteries continue to lie dormant beneath the sands of time. Each new discovery not only helps us better understand the past, but also opens the door to astonishing archaeological revelations still waiting ahead. So, are you curious to know what remarkable discoveries archaeologists have made in recent years, and what secrets they may be hiding? If so, follow me, and let's begin exploring right now. A 2,000-year-old bog mummy, revealing the chilling secrets of Celtic human sacrifice. History is not always told through yellowed pages of ancient books. Sometimes it is preserved intact deep within the earth, in places where time itself seems to have stood still. Some discoveries send a chill down our spines, not because they are merely ancient remains, but because they serve as vivid evidence of the dark rituals of the past. The story of Lindo Man, a more than 2,000-year-old male mummy discovered in England, is one such case, where every small detail of the body reveals a haunting death. The mummy was found in a peat bog at Lindo Moss, near the town of Wilmslow in Cheshire, England. What astonished scientists and archaeologists was the nearly perfect level of natural preservation. The skin, hair, and even facial features remained clear enough to be recognizable. Even more remarkably, researchers were able to determine both the cause of death and the man's final meal. As a result, the mummy, named Lindo Man, quickly became one of the most famous archaeological discoveries in Europe. According to analysis, at the time of his death, Lindo Man was a healthy man in his early 20s. His body showed no signs of long-term hard physical labor, no calloused hands, no bone damage caused by strenuous work. This led scientists to believe that Lindo Man may have belonged to a high-status class within ancient Celtic society. And yet, how could someone like this have ended his life in a cold, black peat bog? To this day, science has not been able to fully explain why the natural environment at Lindo Mas was able to preserve the body so exceptionally well. However, what researchers are almost certain of is that the cause of Lindo Man's death was far from simple. His body bore numerous severe injuries to the head, neck, chest, and ribs. Most of these wounds were caused by blunt force applied with extreme violence, enough to cause serious trauma or death. In addition, there were clear-cut marks on the neck and chest, indicating that this was not an ordinary accident. Based on these traces, a disturbing hypothesis was proposed. Lindo Man may have been the victim of an ancient human sacrifice ritual. According to scholar Anne Ross, an expert in Celtic history, along with Don Robbins of the University of London, the key evidence lay in the victim's stomach. Inside, scientists discovered a piece of burned bread that had not yet been fully digested. While this may sound insignificant, in ancient Celtic culture, this detail carried a deeply unsettling meaning. According to Celtic records and legends, those chosen for sacrifice would draw lots by pulling pieces of bread from a bag. Whoever happened to draw the burned piece would become the offering to the gods. For this reason, the presence of burned bread in Lindo Man's stomach has led many researchers to believe that he was, in fact, the chosen one in a brutal sacrificial ritual. Beyond that, scientists have also suggested that this sacrifice may have been intended to seek the favor of 3 Celtic gods. The goal may have been to prevent, or to ask for protection against, a Roman invasion, believed to have occurred around 60 CE. If this hypothesis is correct, then the death of Lindo Man was not merely a personal tragedy, but a reflection of the fear and deep spiritual beliefs of an entire community in the face of historical upheaval. Just thinking about it is enough to send a chill down the spine, isn't it? A cemetery of thousands of dismembered mummies and the chilling rituals of ancient Peru. On a small barren hill in Peru that appears unremarkable at first glance, scientists uncovered an ancient cemetery containing thousands of bodies, most of them no longer intact. The site is called Tenahaha, and the story hidden behind the mummies found there is far more terrifying than one might initially imagine. According to researchers, the Tenahaha cemetery dates back approximately 1,200 years. It was not merely a burial ground for the dead, but a unique space where ancient communities once gathered to resolve disputes, followed by symbolic religious rituals. Between 2004 and 2007, an international team of archaeologists conducted excavations at the site and discovered more than 171 mummies in small graves and burial chambers scattered throughout the area. Of course, this number is likely only the tip of the iceberg, as scientists believe the true number of mummies at Tenahaha may reach into the thousands, possibly even exceeding the number of people who lived in the region at any one time. At this point, you might be wondering, why were there so many deaths, and what exactly happened in this place? The mummies that were found were all positioned in highly unusual ways. Their arms were tightly folded across their chests, their legs drawn sharply upward, with their knees nearly touching their shoulders, as if their bodies had been compressed before death. In addition, the bodies were bound with ropes and wrapped in multiple layers of cloth. This burial method suggests that these were not random deaths, but part of a deliberate ritual carried out according to strict rules. What makes Tenahaha even more haunting is the makeup of those who were buried there. Archaeologists found individuals of all ages, from fetuses and newborn infants placed inside small jars to fully grown adults. However, most of the mummies were severely damaged. Evidence of rodent activity and water infiltration had destroyed many of the remains over time. Yet not all of this damage was natural. Upon closer examination, experts discovered that some mummies had been deliberately dismantled. Their bones were removed, scattered, and redistributed among dozens of different graves, and in some cases transferred to separate mortuary structures. Most disturbingly, in one tomb, archaeologists uncovered approximately 400 individual body parts, including hands, feet, and teeth. This horrifying scene has led many to ask, was this a religious practice, a form of human sacrifice, or the brutal aftermath of violence and warfare? Researchers believe that those buried at Tenahaha may have been residents of nearby villages. In addition to burial sites, the area also contained storage buildings and communal living spaces. This was a place where people gathered to eat together, exchange goods, and possibly reconcile after conflicts. However, Tenahaha and its surrounding regions were frequently marked by tension. Villages fought one another over farmland and power, making violence an unavoidable part of life at the time. For this reason, the thousands of dismembered mummies at Tenahaha may well be the remaining traces of prolonged conflicts that were later legitimized through religious rituals. Therefore, it would not be an exaggeration to say that this site was not only a cemetery for the dead, but also a mirror reflecting a deeply unstable period in history, where life and death were tightly bound to war, belief, and fear. Terrifying, isn't it? The 16,000-year-old shape-shifting wolf remains found in a cave in Germany. Hidden deep within the cold caves of Germany, where sunlight can barely reach, archaeologists have unexpectedly uncovered one of the most crucial missing pieces in the history of the relationship between humans and animals. It was not gold, silver, or ancient stone structures, but 8 canine teeth and a fossilized fragment of a jawbone, lying silently in the Nearshola cave for more than 16,000 years. At first glance, these remains seemed unremarkable, but upon closer analysis, scientists realized they were evidence of a creature in the process of shape-shifting, a rare evolutionary link between wild wolves and domestic dogs. The discovery immediately drew widespread attention from researchers, as it opened a new window into understanding the origins of dogs, humanity's most loyal companions. According to Dr. Chris Baumann of the University of Tübingen in Germany, these fossils belong to individuals that were no longer fully wolves, yet could not truly be classified as domestic dogs. They represent an incomplete stage of evolution, reflecting the earliest period when humans began domesticating animals for survival. What is especially remarkable is how well the genetic material in these teeth and jawbones was preserved. This allowed the research team to compare them with 11 other ancient dog specimens previously excavated in the region and nearby areas, 3 from Frankfurt in Germany, 2 from France, and 5 from northern Canada. The ages of these comparison samples range from approximately 33,000 years ago to as late as the 7th century CE, enabling scientists to reconstruct a fairly comprehensive picture of canine evolution. Beyond skeletal morphology, the researchers also used carbon-13 and nitrogen-15 isotope analysis to study the diet of each individual. Based on the results, they divided the specimens into 3 distinct groups, A, B, and C. Group A most closely resembled ancient wild wolves, with diets rich in protein from large animals such as elephants and mammoths. Group C showed high levels of carbon-13, indicating that they primarily hunted small mammals. Group B, however, was markedly different. It displayed lower levels of nitrogen-15, reflecting a more varied but lower protein diet. Crucially, all of the shape-shifting wolves found in the Nearshola cave belonged to Group B. Their diet included a wide range of prey, from hares and hoofed animals such as reindeer and horses to even other carnivores. This eating pattern suggests that they were no longer living entirely like wild wolves but had begun adapting to life near humans. This adaptation explains why these creatures exhibited both wolf-like and dog-like characteristics. They still possessed wild instincts, yet were being fed, cared for, and gradually controlled by humans. In many ways, they stood precisely on the boundary between nature and human civilization. A small evolutionary step, but one that would ultimately change history. Based on the collected data, the research team believes that the domestication of wolves into dogs began approximately 14,000 to 16,000 years ago. And the Nearshola cave is one of the rare places that captures this extraordinary moment when prehistoric humans and wild wolves began forming a symbiotic relationship. Humans gained a guard and a hunting companion, while wolves gained food and protection. If we could turn back time and stand inside that cave, what do you think we would see? A pack of wolves lingering around the fire of prehistoric humans, or the very first dogs cautiously stepping closer to people? As for me, I believe it was in those fragile moments that the oldest friendship between humans and animals was born. Mysterious Maya city emerges from the jungles of Mexico. Deep within the dense jungles of southern Mexico, where thick vegetation blocks out even sunlight, history has unexpectedly revealed itself once again. On June 20th, 2023, archaeologists announced the discovery of a previously unknown ancient Maya city hidden in this remote region. This was not merely a collection of scattered ruins, but an entire large-scale ancient urban center that had lain silently within nature for thousands of years, waiting to be seen by the modern world. The city has been named Ocomtun, which in the Yucatec Maya language means stone column. The name itself evokes images of a landscape filled with ancient stone pillars rising from the earth. Upon closer investigation, researchers determined that Ocomtun consists of numerous monumental structures, large buildings with pyramid-like forms, many stone columns spread throughout the area, and 3 expansive plazas. These structures are arranged in nearly concentric circular patterns, indicating that the ancient Maya possessed a highly sophisticated and deliberate approach to urban planning. According to archaeological evidence, Ocomtun was once an important center of Maya civilization between approximately 250 and 1000 CE. The Maya civilization is well known for its precise mathematical systems, advanced astronomical knowledge, and complex writing system. Their influence extended across southeastern Mexico and much of Central America. However, what many people do not realize is that long before the Spanish arrived in the Americas, this once glorious civilization had already undergone a prolonged decline lasting several centuries. Historians believe that widespread political collapse destabilized Maya power centers, leading to the abandonment of many cities. When the Spanish later arrived, they carried out military campaigns, and by the end of the 17th century, the last Maya stronghold in Mexico had fallen. Ocomtun appears to be a crucial piece of the puzzle in helping us better understand this mysterious and turbulent period. Leading archaeologist Ivan Spreich explained that Ocomtun has a core area situated on elevated ground, surrounded by extensive flooded wetlands. This location provided natural defensive advantages while also demonstrating the Maya's remarkable ability to adapt to harsh environments. Within this core zone, researchers discovered several pyramid-like structures rising up to about 49 feet tall, standing prominently amid the jungle as if still guarding ancient secrets. Notably, Ocomtun was not limited to temples alone. The city also featured a ball court, a common and significant element in Maya cities. The Maya ball game was far more than mere entertainment. It carried deep religious significance. Players had to pass a rubber ball, symbolizing the sun, across the court without using their hands, attempting to send it through a small stone ring. Each match could be tied to ritual practices and even spiritual decisions affecting the entire community. In addition, Spreich's team discovered central altars near the Yde River. These structures were likely designed for communal ceremonies where the Maya gathered to pray to their gods or perform important rituals. However, scientists emphasize that much more research is needed to fully understand the cultures that once existed and flourished in this region. Based on materials recovered from the structures, Spreich suggests that Ocomtun likely declined between 800 and 1000 CE. This decline may reflect major ideological and demographic changes, contributing to the broader collapse of Maya societies in the region during the 10th century. And so, Ocomtun, once a thriving urban center, was gradually reclaimed by the jungle, becoming a lost city for more than 1,000 years, until archaeologists finally rediscovered it once again. The 3,000-year-old tomb on the northern highlands of Peru. In the northern highlands of Peru, where mountain winds sweep across barren slopes and modern humans rarely set foot, archaeologists have unexpectedly uncovered an ancient piece of history that had lain dormant for 3,000 years. It was neither gold nor silver, nor a massive pyramid, but a quiet ancient tomb, one that nonetheless sent shockwaves through the research community. This tomb is believed to be the final resting place of an important religious official who once held a special role in ancient Andean society. Researchers have provisionally named him the priest of Pompeii, after the location where the tomb was discovered, a remote highland area isolated from the outside world. According to an announcement by Peru's Ministry of Culture, the burial method alone made it clear that this was no ordinary individual. The body was placed deep beneath 6 layers of ash mixed with dark soil, a burial style rich in ritual meaning, typically reserved for figures of high status and significant spiritual authority within the community. Surrounding the remains, archaeologists uncovered a number of artifacts that invite serious reflection. Finely decorated ceramic bowls, adorned with intricate patterns, reveal the high level of craftsmanship and aesthetic sophistication of the ancient inhabitants. Even more notably, the tomb contained ceremonial seals, objects not accessible to just anyone. This further supports the hypothesis that the individual buried here held an important religious or spiritual position. Most striking of all were two seals placed deliberately in symmetrical positions. One seal was carved with a human face facing east, while the other depicted a jaguar facing west. For ancient cultures, directions and sacred animals were never random. Sunrise and sunset, humans and spirit animals, all may have symbolized the cycle of life and death, reflecting the spiritual beliefs once held by ancient Andean communities. In terms of size, the tomb measured nearly 6.5 feet in diameter and about 3.3 feet deep, large enough to inspire a sense of solemnity even among modern researchers. However, what truly surprised them was the burial position. The body was placed face down, with the feet crossed, a highly unusual burial posture entirely different from other tombs of the same period. This position may carry special ritual meaning or reflect a unique belief about the afterlife. Adding to the mystery, archaeologists also discovered a tupu among the remains, a traditional Andean cloak pin. What makes this unusual is that tupus are typically associated with women. Yet anthropological analysis confirmed that the tomb belonged to a man. This detail immediately raised a series of questions. Could this priest have held a role that transcended conventional gender boundaries within religious rituals? Archaeologist Yde Girl, the lead researcher on the excavation project, stated that while the burial has been identified as male, the accompanying artifacts carry complex symbolic meanings. He believes the individual may have been a religious leader or an intermediary figure between humans and the spiritual world in ancient society. Further analysis revealed that the tomb dates back to approximately 1200 BCE, offering new insights into the early cultures of the Andean highlands. Clearly, the tomb of the priest of Ocomtun is more than a simple archaeological discovery. It is like a door slowly opening, allowing us to step back into a time when belief systems, rituals, and spiritual power strongly shaped human life. And the story of this priest is far from over. Beneath the rocky soil of the highlands, the past still holds many mysteries waiting to be awakened. What do you think? Or do you have a different perspective? Let me know your thoughts by leaving a comment below this video. The stone road beneath the ocean floor, a 10,000-year-old mystery in the Bermuda Triangle. Beneath the deep blue waters off the coast of the Bahamas, where ocean waves endlessly wash over ancient coral reefs, there lies a mystery that remained hidden for tens of thousands of years, unknown to the world. That is, until one day in September 1968, when a chance dive near Bimini Island suddenly turned the field of archaeology upside down with a discovery no one had anticipated. While conducting what seemed like an ordinary dive, Dr. Valentine unexpectedly noticed a strange structure on the seafloor at a depth of approximately 100 feet. This was not a random scattering of natural rocks, but a series of massive stones arranged in a formation resembling a road. As he and his colleagues moved closer, they were even more astonished to find around 50 enormous stone blocks, rectangular and polygonal in shape, laid out with astonishing precision. Many of these blocks measured up to about 16 feet in length, with edges that fit together almost perfectly, so precisely that they appeared to bear unmistakable signs of human workmanship. This discovery immediately raised a critical question: who built this road and for what purpose? After extensive geological and archaeological studies, scientists determined that this formation was unlikely to be a natural phenomenon. Instead, the Bimini Road is believed to be a man-made structure, possibly dating back as far as 10,000 years ago. If this hypothesis is correct, the structure would be older than the Egyptian pyramids and would have been built during a time when, according to conventional understanding, humans were still living in primitive communities. Since its announcement, the Bimini Road has sparked intense debate within the scientific community. Some researchers argue that it may simply be an ancient roadway, possibly used for ritual purposes or trade by a civilization that later disappeared beneath rising sea levels. Others have proposed more daring theories, suggesting that it could be the remains of a religious structure, such as an altar, a temple, or even a form of ancient observatory where people once observed the sky and natural cycles. What makes the mystery even more compelling is that some studies have pointed out striking similarities between the stone blocks at Bimini and the massive stones at Sacsayhuaman, a famous archaeological site located in the highlands of Peru. The polygonal shapes, stone-fitting techniques, and remarkable precision have led many to wonder, could there have been a connection between ancient civilizations separated by half the globe? Or is this merely a coincidence shaped by history? And then there is the most controversial theory of all, that the Bimini Road may be a surviving remnant of Atlantis, the legendary city described by the philosopher Plato. According to this idea, Atlantis sank beneath the sea after a catastrophic disaster, and Bimini could represent one of the few traces left behind by that lost civilization. While no concrete evidence supports this claim, the theory alone is enough to ignite the human imagination. Today, the stone road beneath the waters of Bimini has become a dream destination for divers from around the world, not only to witness a strange structure hidden beneath the ocean, but also to experience firsthand the feeling of standing before an unsolved mystery. For archaeologists and scientists, Dr. Valentine's discovery remains a major unanswered question, still waiting to be decoded. Perhaps in the future, through continued observation and research, this stone road will reveal an entirely new chapter in human history, a chapter that lay buried beneath the ocean for thousands of years. That possibility doesn't seem so far-fetched, does it, in a world that continues to advance at an extraordinary pace? Extremely rare. Jade-like fossils of an ancient marine creature. Mr. Zhang, a resident of Beiji Town in Guizhou Province, China, set out one ordinary morning with a simple plan: to dig a small pond in his yard to store water. But fate had other plans. As he dug, his shovel suddenly struck several strange small stones. At first, he assumed they were merely colorful pebbles, so he casually picked them up and set them aside, completely unaware that he had just touched a fragment of Earth's ancient memory. As time went on and he continued digging, Mr. Zhang uncovered more stones with similar shapes and colors. They were not only visually striking, but under sunlight they displayed a glossy surface and texture that reminded many people of jade. Before long, rumors spread like wildfire. The story of old Zhang digging a pond and striking jade quickly became the hottest topic in the village. Curious locals flocked to his home, eager to see the treasure he had accidentally unearthed. The more closely the stones were examined, the more puzzled people became. They did not resemble ordinary rocks, yet they were not quite jade either. Then, suddenly, someone in the crowd blurted out that their shapes looked remarkably like animal bones. That single remark struck Mr. Zhang like a bolt of lightning. He began to wonder, could these be the remains of an ancient creature? Unable to find answers on his own, Mr. Zhang decided to contact experts for professional examination and analysis. From that moment on, the truth slowly began to emerge. When archaeologists and geologists arrived at the site, they were astonished. After conducting a series of rigorous tests, they concluded that the jade-like stones were in fact fossils of ancient marine creatures, organisms that had lived tens of millions of years ago. What made the discovery truly extraordinary was that these fossils had undergone jade-like mineralization. Over a prolonged geological process, minerals had gradually infiltrated and crystallized within them, giving the fossils a glossy, translucent appearance similar to jade. This discovery caused a sensation not only because of the rare beauty of the specimens, but also because of the powerful message they carried. These fossils serve as vivid evidence that Beiji, now a mountainous region, was once part of a vast ocean. Over millions of years, tectonic plate movements uplifted the land, forming mountains, pushing the ocean far away, and burying all traces of the ancient sea deep beneath the ground. According to experts, for fossils to reach such a high degree of jade-like transformation, they must be preserved in extremely specific conditions, protected from decay, shielded from climatic influences, and subjected to continuous mineralization over immense spans of time. As a result, the value of these fossils extends far beyond scientific research. They are also extraordinarily valuable in terms of collection and the market. One ordinary morning, a small pond, a farmer. Together, they formed an unbelievable yet true story. As you can see, sometimes the most precious things are not found far away, but right beneath our feet, simply waiting for the right moment to be revealed. And who knows? Perhaps you, the one watching this video, might be the next person to uncover traces of deep time hidden in the very land you call home. Fossils of a giant dragon, a 90-million-year-old monster related to snakes. 90 million years ago, long before humans ever appeared, a massive shadow silently glided through the vast oceans. Its body stretched more than 17 feet long, with an elongated crocodile-like snout and razor-sharp teeth ready to tear apart its prey. What creature do you think I'm describing? A dragon from ancient legends? Oh no, this was not a mythical dragon, but a real sea dragon that scientists have recently discovered in Mexico, sending shockwaves through the paleontological community. According to research led by paleontologist Herto Rivera Silva of Mexico's Desert Museum, the creature has been named Jaguarosaurus regiomontanus. Just hearing the name sounds fierce, doesn't it? This animal belonged to the mosasaurs, a group of gigantic and highly aggressive marine reptiles that lived alongside dinosaurs on land. In the oceans of the Cretaceous period, mosasaurs sat firmly at the top of the food chain, and Jaguarosaurus was very likely no exception. And here's the fascinating part. The fossils of this sea monster were discovered in layered limestone deposits of the Agua Nueva Formation in Mexico. This geological formation dates back about 90 million years to the Cretaceous period. These limestone layers were formed in an open marine shelf environment with low oxygen levels, conditions that allowed the animal's remains to be preserved in remarkably complete condition. The Agua Nueva Formation has previously revealed many beautifully preserved ancient fish and marine reptiles, but Jaguarosaurus regiomontanus stands out due to its impressive size and exceptional state of preservation. According to analyses published on Sci News, when it was alive, this creature measured approximately 17 feet in length. While that may not sound as enormous as some mosasaurs that reached lengths of up to 39 feet, what makes Jaguarosaurus truly significant is that it represents one of the earliest large mosasaurs ever discovered. This suggests that terrifying apex predators emerged in the oceans very early on, capable of dominating nearly all other marine life of their time. To date, scientists have identified around 40 different genera of mosasaurs worldwide. Although their sizes varied, they shared common traits: long, streamlined bodies, impressive swimming speed, and extremely aggressive hunting instincts. Interestingly, the closest living relatives of mosasaurs today are snakes. Creepy to think about, isn't it? Anatomical features of Jaguarosaurus indicate that it belongs to the genus Plioplatycarpus, and it was a particularly large individual compared to other members of this group. Artistic reconstructions show a sinuous, dragon-like body, fins similar to other ancient marine reptiles, a long crocodile-style snout, and even a tongue resembling that of a snake, an image chilling enough at first glance. This striking combination of a sea dragon appearance and a unique evolutionary background makes Jaguarosaurus an extraordinarily important discovery. According to the researchers, this species emerged after a mass extinction event during the Cretaceous period, providing powerful evidence of life's remarkable ability to adapt and recover. However, no matter how fearsome or powerful it was, Jaguarosaurus could not escape the harsh laws of nature. Like dinosaurs, pterosaurs, ichthyosaurs, and all other mosasaurs, this sea dragon vanished after the catastrophic Chicxulub asteroid impact struck Earth 66 million years ago. In a single cosmic moment, an entire era came to an end. Today, from fossilized remains resting silently within limestone, Jaguarosaurus regiomontanus tells us a story of an ancient ocean filled with monstrous predators. So if you could travel back in time and stand face to face with this 90-million-year-old sea dragon, do you think you would feel fear or awe at its overwhelming presence? As for me, I'll go first. I would be absolutely terrified, my friends. Kofun, the untouchable tombs that hide the secrets of imperial power in Japan. In modern-day Japan, the land of the rising sun, where bullet trains race across the countryside and dense cities rise side by side, there still exist strange hills that few people are ever allowed to approach. From a distance, they look like nothing more than quiet, tree-covered mounds, isolated and unremarkable. Yet beneath these layers of earth lies an entire world of power, mystery, and unanswered questions. These are the Kofun tombs, burial monuments considered untouchable relics of ancient Japan. The term Kofun refers collectively to more than 160,000 tombs built from the early 3rd century to the 6th century, used to bury Japanese emperors and members of the imperial family. Constructed from massive stone blocks and covered with layers of earth, these tombs were shaped into artificial hills. Over thousands of years, they have blended almost seamlessly into the natural landscape, making it difficult for outsiders to recognize the immense historical value hidden beneath them. What makes Kofun tombs truly unique is their architectural design. Historically, these tombs took various forms, such as circular or square shapes. However, the most iconic and intriguing design is the keyhole shape, a form found almost exclusively in Japan. When viewed from above, the front appears round while the rear is square, forming a distinctive outline that inevitably raises questions. Why a keyhole? To this day, experts cannot definitively explain its meaning. Many theories suggest it may symbolize a gateway to the afterlife or represent the supreme authority and wealth of the person buried within. Even more intriguingly, satellite imagery from NASA has reportedly identified similar shapes during surveys of the surface of Mars, sparking curiosity among many observers. Is this merely a coincidence, or could there be something deeper behind the resemblance? Beyond their shape, Kofun tombs are often compared to the pyramids of Egypt. From their massive scale to their burial customs, the way ancient Japan laid its emperors to rest shares striking similarities with how the pharaohs were buried. These rulers did not depart empty-handed. They were interred alongside their possessions: swords, bronze, gold, jewels, and even concubines. All were believed to accompany them into the afterlife, allowing them to continue their royal existence beyond death. Among the hundreds of thousands of Kofun tombs, none is more famous than Daisenryo Kofun in Osaka. It is the largest tomb in Japan and one of the largest burial monuments in the world. The structure stands approximately 115 feet tall, spans over 980 feet in width, and stretches nearly 1,640 feet in length. It was constructed sometime between the 4th and 5th centuries. Surrounding the tomb are 3 moats and 2 belts of dense vegetation, forming an exceptionally strong natural defensive system. It is estimated that 2,000 workers, laboring continuously for 16 years, were required to complete this colossal project. Daisenryo Kofun is believed to be the final resting place of Emperor Nintoku, the 16th emperor of Japan, who ruled during the 3rd century. However, to this day, the exact location of his remains within the tomb remains unknown. The greatest mystery lies here. Despite their fame and historical importance, Japan's Kofun tombs remain largely off-limits. They are strictly protected by the government, and even members of the imperial family are not permitted to enter the main burial areas where the emperors are said to rest. So the question remains, beneath these silent, grass-covered hills, how many secrets of ancient Japanese history are still hidden away? What do you think lies below? Leave your thoughts in the comments and see if your guess is closer to the truth. Forgotten treasure of gold and gems, hidden in an ancient Greek tomb. Imagine yourself standing in a quiet coastal town in Greece where Mediterranean winds drift across ancient ruins. Just beneath what appears to be ordinary soil, 2 tombs lay undisturbed for thousands of years, guarding a treasure that would leave the archaeological world stunned. This is not a scene from a movie. It is the very real discovery made by archaeologists Jack Davis and Sharon Stocker in the town of Pylos, Greece, a land closely associated with the palace of King Nestor, the legendary ruler who appears in Homer's epic masterpieces, the Iliad and the Odyssey. These tombs are located very close to Nestor's palace, as if those buried within were directly connected to the highest levels of power at the time. Both tombs were constructed in the tholos style, a beehive-shaped domed structure reserved exclusively for royalty and the elite in ancient Greece. One tomb measures approximately 39 feet in diameter, while the other is smaller, at about 28 feet. Despite the difference in size, both radiate an extraordinary sense of grandeur and durability. Tens of thousands of massive stones, each roughly the size of a watermelon, were tightly stacked together. This stone armor quietly protected the tombs from grave robbers and the ravages of time for millennia. As a result, when archaeologists finally entered the chambers, they were greeted by an almost perfectly preserved space, as though it had been sealed only yesterday. What lay inside took everyone's breath away. Davis and Stocker discovered amber beads originating from the distant Baltic Sea, along with amethyst brought from Egypt, clear evidence of an astonishingly vast ancient trade network. In addition, countless fragments of gold once used to line the walls and floors transformed these tombs into a true treasure vault. Most remarkable of all was a finely crafted gold ring, engraved with images of 2 bulls and motifs believed to represent barley stalks, iconic artistic symbols of the Minoan civilization on the island of Crete. This single artifact serves as vivid proof of cultural exchange among major Mediterranean civilizations in antiquity. The discoveries did not stop there. Archaeologists also uncovered a gold pendant engraved with the image of the Egyptian goddess Hathor, the deity of love, beauty, and joy. Just imagine, how did a religious symbol from ancient Egypt end up inside a tomb in Greece? That detail alone is enough to spark endless curiosity. Inside the tombs were also numerous artworks depicting mythical creatures. One seal carved from agate stone shows two lion-headed beings with sharp clawed feet, both majestic and terrifying. Two other artifacts made of bronze and gold feature a 16-pointed star, a mysterious symbol possibly associated with power or spiritual belief. In addition, an intricately carved ivory plaque, along with armor and weapons, reveals that the tomb's owner was not only wealthy, but also a warrior of high status. According to Sharon Stocker, these tombs were built by the Mycenaeans before the height of classical Greek civilization, during a time when they ruled much of the eastern Mediterranean, roughly from 1600 to 1100 BCE. The individuals buried here lived during the formative period of Greek civilization, when luxury goods were exceedingly rare. Owning such wealth at that time would have made someone a target for countless rivals. This makes one thing abundantly clear. The builders of these tombs were not only incredibly wealthy, but also exceptionally clever, creating a near-perfect fortress to protect their treasure for thousands of years. Quite remarkable, isn't it? What archaeologists found beneath an empty lot terrified the entire world. 700-year-old human remains unexpectedly discovered beneath the ground. My friend, have you ever walked along a familiar road and wondered whether, right beneath your feet, something might be quietly staring back up at you? In the port town of Leith, Scotland, that question suddenly stopped being imaginary when a tramway expansion project unexpectedly turned into a deep excavation into the past, one that even archaeologists found unsettling. The story unfolded on July 16, 2025. During preparations for construction outside South Leith Parish Church, archaeologists uncovered a series of graves dating from 1300 to 1650. In other words, these burials had been lying undisturbed beneath the ground for more than 700 years, directly below a road that modern residents walk across every day, completely unaware of what lay beneath. At this point, many of you are probably feeling the same chill I did, asking yourselves, who is buried down there, and what kind of lives did they live? Those questions are difficult to answer for now. What we do know is that, so far, the archaeological team has excavated 10 sets of human remains. Each skeleton is not just what is left of a person, but a fragment of Leith's medieval history. Previous surveys had already indicated that the church cemetery was once far larger than it is today, and over time, modern roads were unintentionally built directly on top of these ancient burial grounds. What makes this excavation especially fascinating is that its purpose goes far beyond simply digging things up. Once removed from the ground, the remains will undergo detailed examination and analysis. From the bones alone, scientists can determine a person's origins, overall health, diseases they may have suffered from, and even aspects of their diet centuries ago. Put simply, by studying the skeletons, researchers can tell whether people in the past were well-fed or malnourished, whether they performed heavy or light labor, and what illnesses they may have endured. Archaeologist John Lawson explained that the historic port and town of Leith is one of Scotland's most significant urban archaeological sites, containing evidence of settlement stretching back more than 900 years. Although the excavation has only just begun, the initial discoveries have already provided valuable evidence, helping to further clarify the history of the cemetery and the development of the town itself. The team has also uncovered remains believed to be part of a wall that once enclosed the medieval cemetery. This detail acts almost like a boundary between two worlds. On one side, modern-day Leith with its trams and paved roads. On the other, ancient Leith, a place where people once lived, worked, fell ill, and eventually came to rest. According to Lawson, the archaeological team hopes to uncover many more significant discoveries in the near future. Each new find is like opening another page of an old book, allowing researchers to gather more information about the lives of medieval Leith residents, so their stories can be retold to the people of Leith today. And now, I'd like to ask you a question. If one day the road you walk on were suddenly dug up, revealing traces of your ancestors from hundreds of years ago, how would you feel? Surprised? Curious? Or just a little uneasy? Leave a comment and let me know. Let's see who the bravest one here really is. 2 gold-covered mummies reveal the closest clues yet to the mystery of Cleopatra's tomb. If there is one historical figure whose name alone seems to carry an air of mystery, It is undoubtedly Queen Cleopatra. Her beauty, power, political cunning, and dramatic death have fueled debate around the world for more than 2,000 years. Yet, ironically, the final resting place of one of ancient Egypt's most powerful women remains completely unknown. Only recently, however, has a new discovery at the ancient temple of Taposiris Magna reignited these theories, burning as fiercely as the midday desert sun. At this site, scientists uncovered two mummies believed to have lived during Cleopatra's time, buried deep within the Taposiris Magna complex, located roughly 60 miles from Cairo. What left archaeologists truly stunned was not the number of mummies, but the way they were buried. Originally, their bodies had been completely covered in gold leaf, an extravagant funerary practice reserved only for individuals of exceptionally high status in ancient Egyptian society. According to the remaining traces, although the mummies have suffered damage over the past 2,000 years due to water seepage, the surviving fragments of gold leaf are more than enough for archaeologists to conclude one thing: these were not ordinary people. In fact, the research team believes it is very likely that these individuals had direct contact with Queen Cleopatra, or at the very least lived close to the center of her power. X-ray examinations further revealed that one mummy was male and the other female. From this, a particularly intriguing hypothesis has emerged. They may have been priests, figures who played a crucial role in maintaining Cleopatra's religious and political authority. Put simply, if Cleopatra ruled from the throne, the priests were the ones working behind the scenes, helping her legitimize her power in the eyes of both the gods and the people. Even more striking, engraved into the gold leaf covering one of the mummies is the image of a scarab beetle, a powerful symbol of rebirth in ancient Egyptian belief. This single detail alone has prompted researchers to examine the find repeatedly, as it reflects a strong belief in the afterlife and the elaborate burial rituals granted to the deceased. The excavation is led by Dr. Kathleen Martinez, a name well known to anyone who has followed the long-running search for Cleopatra's tomb. For more than 14 years, she has devoted herself almost entirely to the temple of Taposiris Magna, driven by the conviction that this legendary queen may be buried there. Even so, archaeologists have so far uncovered only a small portion of this vast site, meaning that far more secrets still lie hidden beneath the ground than we might imagine. Adding to the intrigue, within the temple sanctuary, where priests once carried out ritual offerings, researchers also discovered around 200 coins bearing Cleopatra's name and likeness. These coins not only confirm a strong connection between the queen and Taposiris Magna, but also offer insight into how Cleopatra wished to be seen by the world. According to experts, the prominent nose and full chin depicted on the coins may have been a carefully crafted image, created under the queen's direct instruction. So, in the end, are these two gold-covered mummies merely loyal attendants, or are they the key that leads us to Cleopatra's final resting place? Is the greatest mystery of ancient Egyptian history slowly being revealed, layer by layer, beneath the feet of a temple that has slept for more than 2 millennia? It's hard to say, isn't it? But I firmly believe that everything is connected. The 2,600-year-old mummy of a female Amazon warrior. When people hear the phrase Amazon warrior, many immediately picture tall women on horseback, bows in hand, figures that exist only in Greek mythology. But what many don't realize is that Amazons were not just legends. And the evidence lies beneath the frozen soil of Siberia, where a young girl just over 13 years old lay undisturbed for 2,600 years, carrying with her a short life marked by the spirit of a true warrior. The story begins in 1988 when archaeologist Marina Kilunovskaya, along with her colleague Vladimir Semyonov, first discovered an ancient burial site in the Republic of Tuva, in what is now Siberia. At the time, they believed the remains belonged to an adult woman. But modern science has a way of delivering dramatic surprises. Nearly 40 years later, when researchers re-examined the burial using new technology, the truth stunned everyone. This was not an adult woman, but a young girl under the age of 14, an Amazon warrior who lived in the heart of ancient Central Asia. What makes this mummy extraordinary is not just the title Amazon, but its astonishing level of preservation. The girl's face is still so clearly visible that even a small wart can be seen. Not a scratch or a faint outline, but a very ordinary human detail, one that suddenly makes the 2,600-year gap feel closer than ever. In that face, We see not just a warrior, but a young girl who once lived, breathed, and grew up in a harsh world. And that is not all. On the skin of her abdomen, researchers found rough stitching marks, indicating that those who buried her attempted a form of mummification. This alone suggests she was not an ordinary member of her tribe. Indeed, when archaeologists expanded the excavation, they discovered she had been buried with a full set of weapons, including an axe, a bow, and arrows made of bronze, bone, and wood. That alone makes one thing clear. She was not a figure who stayed behind the lines. She stepped directly onto the battlefield. In addition, the girl wore a leather hat and a long fur coat with double rows of buttons, carefully sewn from jerboa fur. It may sound unusual today, but in ancient times, this type of clothing provided warmth and also signaled the wearer's social status. She was laid to rest in a wooden coffin carved from a single tree trunk and buried at a depth of about 3 feet beneath the ground, a formal burial rite carried out with care and respect. To determine her exact sex, age, and origin, Kilunovskaya and her team conducted genetic sequencing at the Russian Institute of Physics and Technology. The results confirmed that the girl was under 14 years old at the time of her death. This discovery not only challenges traditional views of women's roles in ancient societies, but also suggests that Amazon warriors may have been younger, more diverse, and far closer to real everyday life than we once believed. You see, sometimes history is not written through famous names or grand legends, but through silent individuals, lying beneath the earth for thousands of years, waiting for the day their stories are finally told. A 3,600-year-old mummy of a young girl, buried with an abundance of dowry items in the land of the pharaohs. A coffin lay undisturbed for 3,600 years, its white paint still intact, and inside rested a young girl, surrounded by exquisite jewelry, as if she were about to be married. It sounds strange, doesn't it? Yet this is a completely real story, recently uncovered by archaeologists near the city of Luxor, Egypt. More specifically, the mummy of this young girl was found in an ancient cemetery located on the Dra Abu el Naga hill, not far from modern-day Luxor. In ancient times, this area was part of Thebes, the glorious capital of Egypt for many dynasties, especially during the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom. Just hearing the name Thebes is enough to understand that almost anywhere you dig in this land, you strike history. This discovery comes from the 19th excavation season of the Yehudi project, conducted by Spain's National Research Council. What makes the find particularly intriguing is that the girl's coffin was located close to a mud brick chapel and near the tomb of Jehuti, a powerful high official who once oversaw the royal treasury and public works under Queen Hatshepsut, one of the most famous female pharaohs of ancient Egypt. Experts explain that the coffin, made of wood and shaped like a human body, most likely dates to the 17th dynasty, a turbulent period in Egyptian history when Lower Egypt was under the control of the Hyksos. Remarkably, despite the instability of the era, the coffin remains exceptionally well preserved. The white paint has not faded, as if it had been placed there only yesterday. Inside the coffin lay the mummy of the young girl mentioned earlier. She was approximately 15 to 16 years old and stood about 5 feet 3 inches tall. She was buried alongside a large collection of valuable jewelry, believed to be her dowry. Yes, dowry items, which would normally appear at a wedding ceremony, were instead carried with her into the grave. Using modern X-ray technology, experts determined that the coffin contained 2 rings and 4 necklaces. The girl wore rings on both hands and had earrings as well. The 4 necklaces were carefully arranged across her chest, as though someone had gently adjusted them before sealing the coffin. 2 of the necklaces were made of bright blue faience beads, while another was composed of blue and green ceramic beads. The most striking piece, however, was a necklace made up of as many as 75 semi-precious stones, accompanied by multiple amulets, including the symbol of the god Horus, the ancient Egyptian deity of protection and power. According to researcher José Manuel Galan, this was the most intricate and valuable object among all the discoveries. These pieces of jewelry are not only beautiful, they also serve as powerful evidence of the astonishing level of craftsmanship achieved by ancient Egyptian artisans. Even during a time when the kingdom was under foreign domination, they continued to create works of remarkable refinement, rich symbolism, and deep spiritual meaning. The discoveries did not stop there. Around the same area, archaeologists also found dozens of other coffins scattered across the ground. One rather down-to-earth hypothesis suggests that tomb robbers may have abandoned these coffins while fleeing after being discovered. Fortunately, the young girl's coffin and her precious jewelry remained untouched. So who was this girl, and why was her dowry buried with her? Was it a wedding that never took place, or a burial ritual carrying deeper spiritual significance? To answer these questions, researchers will need to continue their analysis to better understand life, society, and the unfinished stories of the 17th dynasty, where each mummy is not just human remains, but a secret waiting to be told, so that the most accurate answers may one day emerge. Until then, all we can do is wait and wonder. 7 skeletons in a burned house reveal a blood-soaked mystery from 5,700 years ago. Have you ever thought that from just a few dozen broken bones lying silently beneath the earth, modern humans could trace the footsteps of a horrifying tragedy that occurred nearly 6 millennia ago? If not, then let me take you to Kosinivka, a quiet region located about 115 miles south of Kyiv, Ukraine. But that peaceful surface is deceiving. Beneath the soil lies a mystery so unsettling that it has sent chills through the archaeological community. In December 2024, archaeologists excavating a prehistoric house at the site uncovered nearly 100 fragments of human bones. Kosinivka was once home to the Kukuteni Tripilia farming community, a major culture that existed from roughly 4,800 to 3,000 BCE, spanning what is now Romania, Moldova, and Ukraine. These people built large settlements with homes and public structures, and notably, many of their houses were intentionally burned when abandoned. In the past, burned houses were nothing unusual for this culture, but this time was different. Inside the burned structure, scientists discovered the remains of at least 7 individuals: 2 children, 1 adolescent, and 4 adults. 4 of the skeletons were found inside the house itself, heavily scorched by fire. The remaining 3 were located outside and showed no signs of burning at all. This strange arrangement immediately raised red flags, prompting archaeologists to examine every detail closely. Then came an even more chilling discovery. 2 of the adults showed clear signs of severe head trauma inflicted shortly before death. Put simply, they did not die from old age or illness. They may have been attacked. To establish a timeline, the research team used radiocarbon dating. The results showed that 6 of the individuals, very likely members of the same family, died between 3,690 and 3,620 BCE. The 7th individual, however, was an anomaly, having died roughly 130 years later, long after the house had already burned and been abandoned. At this point, the mystery deepens. Further analysis revealed that the bones were broken and discolored while still fresh, meaning the bodies had not yet decomposed. This suggests that these individuals likely died during the fire or immediately afterward. It is possible that 3 people perished inside the burning house, while others succumbed to smoke inhalation or carbon monoxide poisoning after fleeing outside. But the most troubling question remains: who caused the head injuries? Was it an accident, a ritual, or an act of violence? Some skull fragments were found separated from the rest of the bodies, leading researchers to consider the possibility of a multi-stage burial ritual, one in which the dead were not buried all at once, but processed over time. It may sound strange, but in prehistoric societies, almost anything is possible. Unfortunately, despite leaving behind countless archaeological remains, the Kukuteni Tripilia people left no written explanations for how they treated their dead. Archaeologist Jordan Karsten from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh proposed an even more unsettling hypothesis. This may have been the aftermath of a raid. The people inside the house were killed, and the attackers then set the building on fire. From an economic standpoint, it would make little sense for people to burn their own homes, places filled with food supplies, pottery, tools, and ritual objects. This is especially plausible given that they lived near nomadic pastoral groups where conflict was entirely possible. So what was it in the end? A spiritual ritual? A family tragedy? Or evidence of prehistoric warfare? To this day, the question remains unanswered. And it is precisely this uncertainty that makes these 7 silent skeletons one of the most challenging mysteries in modern archaeology. What do you think the answer might be? If you have a theory, leave a comment below. Who knows? Perhaps you, the one listening to this story right now, might be the first to come up with the most convincing explanation. It's entirely possible. the 2,600-year-old mummy of a woman who was unexpectedly stabbed to death. When we look at a mummy lying quietly in a coffin with a calm and peaceful expression, we often assume it was a gentle death, perhaps even a serene one. But sometimes the truth is far more brutal. And the case of Takabuti, an ancient Egyptian woman who lived 2,600 years ago, is one of the clearest examples of that reality. Beneath the seemingly tranquil layers of linen lay a violent death, one that has only recently been revealed through modern science. Takabuti lived in the ancient city of Thebes, modern-day Luxor, around 660 BCE, during the final period of Egypt's 25th dynasty. She died at a very young age, just in her early 20s. According to deciphered hieroglyphic inscriptions, Takabuti was married and was the lady of a well-off household. Her father was also a priest who served the sun god Amun, an origin that clearly places her far from ordinary society. Yet tragically, her life ended with a fatal knife wound delivered from behind. Takabuti's story does not remain confined to Egypt. After the Napoleonic Wars, her mummy was smuggled out of the country. In 1834, a wealthy Irishman named Thomas Gregg purchased the mummy and brought it to Belfast. From that moment on, Takabuti became the first Egyptian mummy ever to appear in Ireland. It was a long journey, from ancient Thebes to modern Europe, but the greatest secret of her death would remain hidden for nearly 2 centuries. In 1835, researchers unwrapped Takabuti's mummy for the first time. At the time, Egyptologist Edward Hincks successfully deciphered her name and some basic details about her identity. However, the cause of her death remained a mystery. Takabuti appeared too peaceful, with no obvious broken bones or visible injuries. No one suspected the tragedy hidden beneath that calm exterior. It was only in recent years, when science finally spoke, that the truth began to emerge. Takabuti's mummy was examined using X-rays, CT scans, hair analysis, radiocarbon dating, and even DNA sequencing. And it was the CT scans that left researchers stunned. The results showed that Takabuti did not die from illness or an accident. She was stabbed. The wound was located in her upper back, near the left shoulder, penetrating into the chest cavity. According to Dr. Robert Loynes, this was a fatal injury, severe enough to cause death very quickly. In other words, this was a deliberate knife attack, not an accident. What makes the discovery even more chilling is that Takabuti's heart was found to be intact and remarkably well preserved, as if it were silently telling the story of her final moments. Bioarchaeologist Eileen Murphy once made a statement that sends shivers down the spine. Takabuti looks peaceful as she lies in her coffin, but now we know that she died at the hands of another person in the final moments of her life. The DNA analysis revealed yet another surprise. Takabuti's genetic profile shows closer similarities to European populations than to modern Egyptians. This raises a series of new questions about her ancestry, marriage, and the interactions between ancient communities. In addition, Takabuti suffered from 2 rare medical conditions that caused her to have an extra tooth and an additional vertebra. Small details, but ones that make her feel deeply human and strikingly real. So in the end, was Takabuti the victim of jealousy, a dispute within a powerful family, or a hidden conspiracy in ancient Thebes? No one knows for certain. But one thing is clear. After 2,600 years, that unjust knife wound has finally been seen by history, forcing us to confront the very human and very dark side of the past. Child remains buried with a beast in an 8,000-year-old ancient grave in Finland. Deep in the forests of Finland, archaeologists unearthed a grave that had lain undisturbed for 8,000 years. No gold, no silver, no stone statues, only the remains of a child and traces of a so-called beast that once lay beside them. Just hearing that is enough to send a chill down your spine, isn't it? But this is not a horror movie, nor a scene born of imagination. It is a real archaeological discovery that has forced scientists to rethink how ancient people understood death. The discovery took place in 1991 at the Majunsuo site near the town of Outokumpu, Finland. There, archaeologists uncovered a Stone Age grave. Inside, they found tiny teeth belonging to a child. Through analysis, experts determined that the child died at roughly between 3 and 10 years of age. What makes this grave extraordinary, however, is not the child's age, but what was buried alongside them. Right next to the remains, researchers discovered two trapezoid-shaped arrowheads made of quartz. Based on their distinctive shape, the grave was dated to the Middle Stone Age, approximately 8,000 years ago, a time when humans had not yet discovered metal but were already skilled hunters and remarkably sophisticated toolmakers. The discoveries did not end there. When scientists analyzed the soil from the grave, they also found fine down feathers from a waterfowl species. It is very likely that ancient people used bird feathers as bedding, allowing the child to rest more comfortably in their final sleep. It is a small detail, but one that shows death was not viewed as something cold or indifferent. It was approached with care and affection. Even more striking, archaeologists also discovered a feather from a hawk, a powerful bird of prey. It may have been used to decorate clothing or to guide arrows during hunting. Just imagine this: a child buried with a hawk feather. Could the family have hoped the child would become a brave hunter in the afterlife? At the foot of the grave, the story takes on an even more mysterious tone. Here, archaeologists found as many as 24 fragments of mammal fur. Although many of the hairs had deteriorated over time, some were identified as belonging to a canine species, most likely a wolf. The mention of wolves immediately brings the image of a beast to mind. But for Stone Age people, wolves were not just fearsome predators. They may also have been companions or even spiritual symbols. Researchers do not rule out the possibility that these fur fragments came from clothing or footwear sewn from wolfskin. If that is the case, then the child was not buried with a beast, but rather wrapped in the image of a powerful animal, perhaps meant to protect the child's soul on its journey to the next world. Associate Professor Kristina Mannermaa of the University of Helsinki noted that the presence of animal fur in the grave is an especially significant detail. She also pointed to another burial site, dating to about 7,000 years ago in Skateholm, where dogs were buried alongside humans. This suggests that the bond between humans and dogs formed very early, not only in daily life, but also in belief and ritual. In addition, plant fibers were found in the grave, possibly from willow or nettle plants. These fibers were likely used to weave clothing or fishing nets, indicating that Stone Age people knew how to skillfully and creatively make use of natural resources. This leads to a profound question. For people living 8,000 years ago, what did the death of a child truly mean? Was it a heartbreaking farewell, or a journey that required careful preparation? Whatever the answer may be, the small grave at Majunsuo tells more than the story of a short life. It opens a window into an entire worldview, one in which humans, animals, and nature were deeply intertwined in ways we are only just beginning to understand. Charred human remains found in a 2,300-year-old ancient tomb. When people think of Istanbul, Turkey, they often picture a vibrant city, a crossroads between Asia and Europe, between the modern world and deep history. What few realize, however, is that hidden beneath its crowded streets lie layers of archaeological remains still waiting to be fully told. And recently, one particularly rare discovery has left experts stunned: the unveiling of a 2,300-year-old tomb containing the burned remains of a human body, an extremely unusual and rare burial practice for this region. According to archaeologists from the Istanbul Archaeological Museums, the body appears to have been placed inside the tomb and then cremated on site. This detail is especially striking, as it differs entirely from the typical burial customs of ancient Anatolia. Cremation was not a common practice among local cultures in this area, particularly during the Hellenistic period, which lasted from around 323 BCE following the death of Alexander the Great until 33 BCE. It was precisely this anomaly that prompted researchers to take a closer look at the tomb. The burial was discovered during excavations in Istanbul, in what was once the ancient city of Chalcedon. Historical records describe Chalcedon as a wealthy and flourishing city during the Hellenistic era. Located along the Bosphorus Strait, a strategic waterway connecting Asia and Europe, Chalcedon, together with its neighboring city Byzantion, later Constantinople, and eventually Istanbul, once controlled one of the most important maritime trade routes in the region. From 235 BCE to 220 BCE, Chalcedon and Byzantium jointly collected tolls from ships passing through the Bosphorus, with military support from the Egyptian navy under the Ptolemaic dynasty, a powerful branch of the Hellenistic world ruled by the descendants of Ptolemy. one of Alexander the Great's closest generals. It was within this dynamic and culturally intertwined historical context that the tomb was dated to approximately 2,300 years ago, corresponding to the height of Greek influence in the region. Yet what makes the discovery remarkable goes beyond the method of burial. Inside the tomb, alongside the cremated remains, archaeologists found a crude terracotta cup and an ancient perfume bottle, two objects strongly associated with ritual practices. The cup may have been used in funerary rites, while the perfume vessel still contained traces of essential oils, suggesting it played a role in purification rituals or in bidding farewell to the soul of the deceased. Rahmi Asal, director of the Istanbul Archaeological Museums, stated that this discovery could reshape current understanding of Hellenistic burial customs in Anatolia. While cremation was relatively common in core Greek city-states, it rarely appeared in coastal regions of Asia Minor, where indigenous and Persian influences remained strong. This raises a compelling question. Why was this individual cremated in a region unfamiliar with such a ritual? Was the deceased a Greek merchant or aristocrat who had settled in Chalcedon? Or does this unusual burial reflect an emerging cultural shift during a period of intense East-West interaction, when Hellenistic influence was gradually overshadowing local traditions? To answer these questions, specialists are continuing chemical analyses of the ashes and the grave goods to trace their origins and to determine the individual's sex, age, and diet. Every detail within the tomb, from the terracotta cup to the perfume bottle, from the ashes to the tomb's construction, serves as a fragment of a much larger historical puzzle. This discovery speaks not only of a single death, but of a civilization in transition, and of people living at a moment where cultures and powers intersected. And like so many archaeological finds, this tomb is not merely the resting place of a long-forgotten individual. It is a gateway to the past, where every brick and every grave offering has the potential to change how we understand history. From ashes more than 2,000 years old, a whisper from the Hellenistic age echoes back to us, inviting us to listen and to decipher its meaning. 128 children's remains found in ceramic jars reveal an unusual burial ritual from 2,000 years ago. Hearing the phrase, "children's remains found in ancient jars," is enough to make many people shudder and ask, why place them in jars? Was this part of a mysterious ritual or a tragic story buried by time? Yet when Chinese archaeologists revealed this discovery, the truth unfolded in a deeply human and surprisingly down-to-earth way. On November 22nd, an archaeological team announced that they had uncovered as many as 128 sets of children's remains, carefully placed inside ancient ceramic jars in the Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region of China. Alongside the bones, researchers also found coins, pottery fragments, and even paving bricks scattered throughout the excavation site. Taken as a whole, the area does not resemble a crude or careless burial ground at all, but rather a carefully prepared funerary space arranged according to its own distinct rituals. According to experts, these children lived during the Han Dynasty, around 2,000 years ago. At that time, cremation was not yet a common practice, especially in the central plains of China. Instead, people often used one or several ceramic jars fitted together to create a small house to protect the remains. It may sound unusual to modern ears, but in essence, it served the same purpose as burial practices today, preserving and safeguarding the deceased. Think about it. Without wooden coffins or brick-built tombs, a sealed ceramic jar was enough to shield the remains from rain, wild animals, and, according to ancient beliefs, from evil spirits as well. For people of that era, ceramic jars were not ordinary objects. They were familiar, readily available, and highly protective. In that context, burying someone in a jar was neither careless nor strange. It was practical and meaningful. Of course, children were not the only ones buried this way. Archaeologists note that adults were sometimes interred in jars as well, though far less frequently. This has led researchers to ask, why were children so closely associated with this practice? The answer likely lies in the social realities of the Han Dynasty. During that period, infant and child mortality rates were extremely high. Building a traditional Han-style tomb was no simple task. Such tombs were often constructed like brick chambers and filled with objects meant for the afterlife. For wealthy families, funerals were also opportunities to display social status, sometimes involving elaborate processions with horse-drawn carriages, grand ceremonies in every sense. For ordinary people, however, the situation was very different. Simply gathering enough bricks to build even a small tomb could be a heavy financial burden. Under these circumstances, jar burials became the most reasonable solution. Affordable, respectful, and still aligned with spiritual beliefs. In other words, this was not neglect, but a form of love shaped by limited means. Interestingly, jar burial practices were not unique to ancient China. In 2012, scientists in Tamil Nadu, southern India, discovered burial jars dating back 1,800 to 1,500 BCE, even older than the finds in Inner Mongolia. More recently, in Budapest, Hungary, experts uncovered jars dating from around 2,200 to 1,450 BCE, though those contained cremated remains instead. These discoveries show that despite being separated by thousands of miles and belonging to different cultures, ancient societies shared a common concern: how to properly say goodbye to the dead. For children, these ceramic jars may have served as a final cradle, a place where they could sleep, protected by the care of their families and communities. So when you hear about 128 children's remains found in ancient jars, don't be too quick to see it as something bizarre or unsettling. Instead, it stands as powerful evidence of a time when, despite hardship and limited resources, people still did their very best to offer small lives one last form of protection, using the means they had and the love they could give. The 140-year-old shipwreck beneath the seabed off England. Lying deep beneath the seabed off the coast of England for nearly a century and a half, the wreck of the SS Nantes had long been hidden by time and the ocean, like an unhealed wound in maritime history. Yet in 2024, it was a tiny shard of porcelain, seemingly insignificant, that became the key to unlocking the past. The SS Nantes, a cargo ship operated by the Cunard Steamship Company, disappeared in 1888 after a catastrophic collision with the German vessel Theodor Ruger. Its identity was finally confirmed thanks to the tireless efforts of diver and explorer Dominic Robinson, who has devoted more than 3 decades of his life to exploring the ocean floor. During a dive searching for an unidentified wreck off the coast of Cornwall, England, Robinson, a 50-year-old former military officer with 35 years of diving experience, came across a broken piece of porcelain plate. Though heavily worn by time, the Cunard Steamship Company emblem was still clearly visible on its surface. That seemingly minor detail proved decisive, confirming that the wreck buried beneath sand and seaweed for 136 years was indeed the SS Nantes, a ship once considered lost forever. The SS Nantes was built in 1874 and served as a cargo vessel operated by Cunard. In 1888, when the ship was just 14 years old, it was sailing from Liverpool, England to Le Havre, France, when it was struck by the German sailing ship Theodor Ruger. The collision tore a massive hole in the ship's hull. In a desperate attempt to save the SS Nantes, the crew used everything they could, from canvas to even mattresses, to plug the breach, but all efforts failed. The ship drifted for several hours before sinking to the seafloor, taking the lives of 23 people with it. Only 3 survivors escaped the disaster, an event that maritime historian Dr. Harry Bennett has described as a heartbreaking tragedy that was forgotten for far too long. The bodies of the unfortunate sailors later washed ashore along the Cornish coast, mixed with ship debris, creating a haunting scene that left a lasting impression on local memory. At the time, there was no satellite navigation or modern detection technology, so the wreck was effectively lost to the depths of the ocean. Although there had been previous attempts to locate shipwrecks in the area, none were able to definitively identify this one, until Dominic Robinson and his team intervened. Footage filmed at the underwater site, showing the wreck lying motionless with rusted components and layers of sand covering it, has since spread rapidly across social media. The discovery has captured attention not only from researchers, but also from history and archaeology enthusiasts. Even Dr. Bennett, a maritime history expert at the University of Plymouth, commented, "This is a true underwater investigation. Finding a needle on the seabed is a completely accurate metaphor, and the local dive team achieved the unthinkable." The identification of the ship was not based solely on the porcelain shard bearing the Cunard logo, but also on the ship's hull structure, construction technology, and its length, approximately 240 feet. After cross-checking images with historical records, researchers concluded, there is no longer any doubt. This is the SS Nantes. For Robinson, the discovery was not just an archaeological breakthrough, but a deeply human journey. He shared, "One of the reasons I keep doing this work is the belief that by solving mysteries and telling forgotten stories, I'm helping those lost souls be remembered. It's a sad story, but at least now, it finally has an ending." The discovery of the SS Nantes wreck not only brings closure to one of the United Kingdom's longest-standing maritime mysteries, but also proves that history, no matter how deeply buried beneath the sea, can rise again through the unwavering passion of those willing to step into the darkness in search of the light of truth. Bizarre skulls in a 12,000-year-old tomb in China reveal the shocking truth behind their alien appearance. If one day you were to walk into an ancient burial site and see skulls that were unusually long and tapered, almost egg-shaped, what do you think your first reaction would be? I'm guessing it would be something like, "Wait, is this a human or an alien?" And let's be honest, quite a few of us have probably wondered at some point whether our ancestors might have encountered extraterrestrials. Sounds wild, right? But the discoveries at the Haotaomuga archaeological site in China show that the truth is actually stranger and far more fascinating than imagination alone. Specifically, along the eastern shore of Lake Xinhuangpao in China, scientists uncovered a total of 25 human skeletons dating from 5,000 to as far back as 12,000 years ago. Among them, 11 skulls displayed an unusually elongated shape, looking at first glance decidedly not very Earth-like. What truly shocked researchers was this. Until now, it was widely believed that the practice of skull elongation only appeared around 9,000 to 10,000 years ago. This discovery pushed that timeline back even further, almost as if a chapter of human history had just been rewritten. A research team from Texas A&M University analyzed the remains and found that these elongated skulls belonged to individuals who died between the ages of 3 and 40. Only 5 of the skulls came from adults. The rest belonged to children. You might be wondering, why would children have skulls shaped like this? Well, the answer lies in an ancient custom, one that was both unusual and quite literally a headache. At the time, skull shaping was not accidental. It was a deliberate cultural practice and a marker of social status. Children born into elite or high-ranking families were modified from a very young age, while their skulls were still soft and malleable. Adults would gently mold the head by hand or tightly wrap cloth around it to elongate the skull into a desired shape. What might seem like a strange beauty trend was actually a lifelong social badge, a visible symbol of identity and rank. The clearest evidence for this lies within the tombs themselves. Archaeologists discovered the grave of a 3-year-old child, yet inside were finely crafted pottery fragments and numerous valuable artifacts. One glance was enough to tell that this child came from a powerful family. Another tomb belonged to a woman buried with jewelry made from seashells, items that were far from cheap in ancient societies. Clearly, skull shape was not merely about appearance, it was a way for society to visibly label social class. The Haotaomuga site was excavated continuously between 2011 and 2015, and it continues to amaze scholars to this day. Perhaps the most surprising revelation is that this practice was not unique to the region. Skull elongation appeared across many ancient civilizations. Among the Maya of Central America, Native American groups, and even ancient tribes in Australia. Without any direct connection, these cultures independently shared the same belief, that the shape of one's head could define who they were in society. So, these so-called alien skulls are not evidence of UFOs or extraterrestrial beings. Instead, they are powerful proof that ancient humans were already altering their bodies to express power, beauty, and social status. When you think about it, the obsession with beauty standards and social class didn't start yesterday. It has existed for thousands of years. And if we feel uneasy looking at these skulls today, one can't help but wonder, thousands of years from now, how will our descendants look back at modern beauty trends? Honestly, I don't even want to imagine it. Pompeii's human remains just changed everything we know about history. My friends, do you remember Pompeii? Nearly 2,000 years ago, it was a vibrant, bustling city. People went to the market, chatted with one another, and believed that today would be just like yesterday. But only a few hours later, everything vanished forever. The city was buried, its people frozen in their final moments, leaving behind mysteries that would take humanity thousands of years to slowly uncover. When Pompeii is mentioned, most people feel a deep sense of sorrow, and many believe that its story ended in a dark chapter of history long ago. But you know what? History has never stayed silent, and a recent archaeological discovery in Pompeii has proven exactly that. So much so that it is forcing the entire world to look at the past in a completely different way. You see, beneath layers of thick volcanic ash that had covered the site for nearly 2,000 years, in the ancient Roman city of Pompeii in southern Italy, archaeologists discovered a strange tomb. Inside were the remains of a man. But what stunned scientists was not the age of the tomb, nor the skeleton itself. It was the fact that his white hair was still intact, along with part of his ear that had not decomposed. Yes, you heard that right. A Roman skeleton, after nearly 2 millennia, still had hair and an ear. According to archaeologists, this is one of the best preserved sets of human remains ever found in Pompeii, and it directly contradicts traditional Roman burial practices. At that time, adults were typically cremated, while only children were buried. This raises a major question. Who was this man, and why was he treated so differently? Thanks to inscriptions on the tombstone, the identity of this mysterious figure gradually came to light. His name was Marcus Venerius Secundio, who died at the age of 60. His name also appears in the wax tablet archives of the banker Caecilius Jucundus, one of the wealthiest individuals in Pompeii at the time. And what truly makes this story extraordinary is Marcus's background. He was once a slave responsible for maintaining the Temple of Venus, a very low position in Roman society. Yet through effort and time, Marcus gained his freedom and gradually rose to achieve significant social and economic status. This is clearly reflected in the sheer scale of his tomb, something not everyone in Pompeii could afford. But the surprises do not end there. The inscription on the tomb reveals that after being freed, Marcus organized theatrical performances in Greek, not Latin, the official language of the Roman Empire. It may seem like a small detail, but it is enough to shake our previous understanding of Pompeii. According to Gabriel Zuchtriegel, director of the Pompeii Archaeological Park, this is evidence that ancient Pompeii was not a closed society, but an open, multicultural, and extremely vibrant city. In other words, Pompeii was not just a Roman city, it was a cultural crossroads of the Mediterranean world, where the Greek language could still be heard in the heart of Roman society. Of course, Marcus's story does not end there. Archaeologists later discovered that the sealed burial chamber, along with marks found on his body, strongly suggests that he may have been mummified, a practice considered extremely rare in Pompeii. According to Gabriel Zuchtriegel, this further demonstrates that Pompeii was once an open cultural center where multiple languages and cultures coexisted. It was not merely a typical Roman city, but a place of intense interaction among Mediterranean communities. However, the biggest question still remains. Why did Marcus's hair and part of his ear survive for thousands of years? To answer this, researchers believe there is evidence suggesting that Marcus was mummified, an exceptionally rare burial practice in Pompeii. In addition, the structure of the tomb itself was a sealed chamber, which limited exposure to air and bacteria, creating better conditions for preservation. That said, this is still a hypothesis. Professor Llorenç Alapont from the University of Valencia explained that the research team is continuing to analyze textile fragments found inside the tomb, as certain fabrics were commonly used in mummification processes. If confirmed, the discovery of Marcus Venerius Secundio could fundamentally change our understanding of burial rituals and social classes in ancient Pompeii. Naturally, when talking about Pompeii, we cannot ignore the catastrophic eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, the event that wiped out the entire city in an extremely short time. Mount Vesuvius is located about 9 miles from Pompeii. It is the only active volcano on mainland Europe and is considered one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world. According to ancient sources, the eruption produced massive pyroclastic flows, a deadly mixture of toxic gases and volcanic material that rushed toward the city at speeds of up to 435 miles per hour, with temperatures reaching around 1,830 degrees Fahrenheit. It was this incredible speed and extreme heat that left the people of Pompeii with no time to escape, burying them almost instantly. The Roman writer Pliny the Younger, who witnessed the disaster from afar, once described it as a gigantic cloud like a pine tree rising from the volcano, covering the sky and turning day into night. That was the moment Pompeii was erased from the world of the living. Researchers estimate that around 2,000 people died in this catastrophe. Since Pompeii was excavated in the mid-19th century, more than 1,000 bodies have been discovered. Many victims were buried so quickly that plaster casts preserved their final poses at the very moment of death. But recent discoveries have revealed something even more surprising. DNA analysis of the remains shows that relationships we once assumed based on physical appearance may have been completely wrong. One famous case involves the skeletons of an adult wearing a gold bracelet, holding a child on their lap. For many years, it was believed they were a mother and child. However, DNA evidence proved that the adult was a man, and the child was not biologically related to him at all. Genetic studies of 5 other sets of remains produced similar results. None of them were related, yet scientists were able to identify their sex and ancestral origins. Despite dying side by side, they shared no blood ties. This suggests that in their final moments, the people of Pompeii tried to protect one another, regardless of family ties or social status. Moreover, DNA evidence also reveals that the victims had extremely diverse genetic backgrounds, with many being descendants of immigrants from the Eastern Mediterranean. Once again, Pompeii emerges not merely as a Roman city, but as a miniature portrait of the entire ancient world. And of course, this is only a small fraction of the secrets that Pompeii is slowly revealing. In the next part of this video, we will continue exploring other archaeological discoveries that are just as shocking. Human remains, artifacts, and mysteries that have forced scientists to rethink the history of humanity itself. Stay until the very end, because the deeper we go into history, the more chilling and unbelievable it becomes. A 400-year-old child skeleton locked at the legs reveals the mad fear of demons in ancient Europe. Try to imagine this. A child dies, but the living are so terrified of the child that they lock its legs before burying it in the ground. What exactly were they afraid of? You might think this sounds like a legend. Oh no, this is not a legend at all. It is a real archaeological discovery recently announced in Poland. Scientists uncovered a grave containing the 400-year-old skeleton of a child buried face down with an iron padlock fastened tightly around its legs, as if to ensure that this child would never stand up again. This chilling discovery was found in the village of Pień, near the city of Bydgoszcz in northern Poland. According to archaeologists, the grave dates back to the 17th century and is located within a special cemetery, believed to have been reserved for abandoned souls, people whom the community of the time was afraid to bury in the usual way. The child buried there is estimated to have died between the ages of 5 and 7. And what sends a shiver down researchers' spines is this: the padlock was not meant to seal the grave, it was meant to keep the body itself trapped underground. The reason lies in European folk beliefs of the time. According to these traditions, people who died in unusual ways, especially children, were believed to be capable of returning to haunt the living. If death came suddenly, or if the body showed anything out of the ordinary, that fear grew even stronger. As a result, people used iron padlocks, sickles, or even face-down burials to prevent restless spirits from rising again. Archaeologist Dariusz Poliński from Nicholas Copernicus University stated, "The padlock shows that people were very afraid of this child after death, and that fear was not an isolated case. Just a few steps away from the child's grave, archaeologists discovered the skeleton of a woman last year. She had been buried with a sickle placed across her neck and also had a padlock at her leg, a combination of burial rituals commonly associated with vampires in European folklore." However, Poliński emphasizes that in the 17th century, the concept of a vampire did not exist as we understand it today. People did not perform these rituals because they labeled the dead as vampires, but because they feared restless and dangerous spirits. Another striking detail is that, throughout the entire cemetery, no other child skeletons have been found buried in this same way. This leads scientists to believe that this may be the only known case in Europe of such a burial involving a child. So far, Poliński and his team have excavated around 100 graves, including 13 newly discovered ones. This cemetery was not the village's official burial ground, but was likely located within the sacred boundary of an old church, although the church's exact location has yet to be identified. Burial in church cemeteries was extremely expensive, so the poor, or those considered unwelcome souls, were often buried in remote graveyards like this one. Ironically, the woman once believed to be a vampire shows signs of wealth. Gold thread in her clothing and traces of gold on her skull suggest that she used medications containing gold and may have suffered from a serious illness before her death. Another small but deeply unsettling detail is that the child's jawbone has a greenish color. Archaeologists believe the child may have been buried with a coin placed in the mouth, a common ritual at the time meant to pay for the journey to the afterlife. At present, the research team is still waiting for DNA analysis results. They do not even know whether the child was a boy or a girl. What is certain, however, is this: the fear of the living followed this child for 400 years, locked in place by iron, belief, and superstition. Just thinking about it is disturbing and terrifying, isn't it? 1,400-year-old tomb and the timeless iron throne of a mysterious queen. There are some treasures that, when seen through modern eyes, make us say, "Wait, this looks familiar." But if we turn the clock back more than 1,400 years, you'll realize that something which seems ordinary today was once a powerful symbol of supreme authority. The clearest proof of this comes from a recently excavated medieval tomb in the village of Ensi in southeastern Germany. There, archaeologists uncovered an object that left the entire research community stunned: a folding iron chair buried alongside the remains of a mysterious woman. Not gold, not a crown, but this chair. This was the true timeless treasure. The chair measures approximately 28 by 18 inches, almost identical in size to the compact folding chairs many of us bring today to picnics or use in our gardens. What is truly astonishing is that around 600 AD, when iron was extremely rare and expensive, creating such a refined and functional design would have been almost unimaginable. The woman buried with the chair is estimated to have been between 40 and 50 years old at the time of her death. Although her identity remains unknown, the mere fact that she was laid to rest with a custom-made or possibly imported iron chair speaks volumes. It strongly suggests that she was a figure of exceptionally high social status. Even more intriguing, within the layers of rust on the chair, archaeologists discovered traces of wood and leather, indicating that the chair was originally finished with great care and craftsmanship. It is highly likely that the woman was placed seated on the chair, like on a throne, before the burial ritual took place. It is a haunting image to imagine: a silent queen seated upon her throne, entering eternity. In truth, iron folding chairs have been found in ancient graves before, but they are extraordinarily rare and almost always associated with the most lavish burial goods. For this reason, researchers believe the chair was a symbolic object, reserved only for the elite: nobles, lords, queens, powerful clergy, or high-ranking officers. And the chair was not the only treasure in the tomb. The burial also contained a remarkable collection of grave goods: necklaces made of pearls and multicolored glass beads, an elaborately decorated belt, and even a spindle whorl used for spinning thread. Together, these objects suggest that the woman was not only wealthy, but also deeply connected to important roles within her community. Most notably, a beautifully patterned glass bead became the key artifact that allowed scientists to date the tomb accurately, placing it at approximately 1,400 years old. The story grows even more compelling when we consider what was found nearby. Not far from this tomb, archaeologists also uncovered the grave of another mysterious figure: a man buried with equally lavish items, including a spear, a shield, a wool comb, an ornate belt, and an expensive pouch. These objects suggest that he may have been a high-ranking warrior or a powerful figure closely associated with the woman buried beside him. Two tombs, two mysterious individuals, one iron throne that defies time. What does it all mean? No one can say for certain, at least not yet. Researchers are currently planning to X-ray the chair, hoping to uncover more clues about how it was made, where it came from, and perhaps even the true identity of the woman who once sat upon this remarkable object. At the same time, further analysis may reveal a connection between her and the man buried nearby. Who knows, perhaps this very chair, so familiar to us today, will force European medieval history to be told in an entirely different way. It's entirely possible, don't you think? A 2,000-year-old mummy beneath the Yenisei Reservoir, the mystery of the Sleeping Beauty rising from the water. Have you ever imagined that beneath the calm surface of a seemingly lifeless reservoir, there could be a human being sleeping undisturbed for nearly 2,000 years? This is not a legend nor a fairy tale. It is a real archaeological discovery that left experts holding their breath in 2018. That year, when the water level of a massive reservoir on the Yde River in Russia suddenly dropped, a team of archaeologists from the Institute for the History of Material Culture in St. Petersburg, part of the Russian Academy of Sciences, encountered a truly rare sight, a tomb containing the mummy of an ancient woman, affectionately nicknamed by researchers the Sleeping Beauty beneath the lake. The tomb is believed to have been submerged underwater for several decades, since the 1980s, after the Sayano-Shushenskaya hydroelectric dam became operational. What is remarkable is that despite being underwater for so long, the burial site was almost completely undamaged. The reason lies in the tomb's construction. Watertight stone slabs surrounded the burial chamber, unintentionally forming a perfect suit of armor that protected the body inside from the destructive forces of time and the environment. When the tomb was opened, archaeologists were left in awe. The woman was dressed in an elegant silk garment with a beaded belt fastened by a finely engraved buckle. Resting on her chest was a small pouch containing pine nuts, and around her lay numerous valuable grave goods. Among the most striking were a beaded gemstone and a mirror in a Chinese style, carefully placed inside a cosmetic box. Everything appeared to have been prepared to accompany her into the afterlife, in keeping with ancient beliefs about death. According to initial assessments, this was not a mummy preserved through traditional embalming techniques. Dr. Marina Kilunovskaya, a member of the archaeological team, explained that the Sleeping Beauty underwent a process of natural mummification, with the lower part of her body being especially well preserved. It was the unique combination of environmental conditions and the tomb's watertight stone structure that created this rare phenomenon. Based on these findings, experts believe that the Sleeping Beauty beneath the lake may have belonged to a Hunnic nomadic community. Moreover, the burial style and accompanying artifacts suggest that she was not an ordinary individual, but likely someone of high status, possibly even a member of the elite or nobility. An ancient vessel in a Hunnic style found near the tomb further supports this interpretation. The Huns were nomadic or semi-nomadic peoples who dominated vast regions of Europe and Asia between the 4th and 6th centuries AD. Although their empire was short-lived, they are believed to have played a significant role in the collapse of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century. However, the dating of this tomb has made specialists cautious. Preliminary evidence suggests that the woman may have been buried 1,900 to 2,000 years ago, around the 1st century AD. This opens up a series of new questions. Was she truly part of an early Hunnic community? Or did she belong to a group that shared deep cultural connections with them? The answers will require further testing and in-depth analysis. The good news is that conservation experts have already begun their work, and early forecasts are optimistic. The soft silk fabric, leather, and delicate clothing details are likely to be preserved, allowing researchers to reconstruct more clearly the life of the Sleeping Beauty before her death. This project has also received financial support from the Russian Geographical Society, aimed at rescuing unique archaeological discoveries from flooded regions. For this reason, the discovery of the Sleeping Beauty beneath the lake is not only an archaeological achievement, it is also a vivid human story, one that speaks of how people loved, honored, and bid farewell to one another thousands of years ago. With its extraordinary state of preservation, from soft tissues and clothing to personal belongings, this mummy has opened a precious window into history, allowing us to touch a past that usually exists only in books. And I can't help but think that beneath the peaceful waters of the Yenisei, there may still be other sleepers, waiting for the day they too are awakened. "50 female remains, 2,500 years old, beneath the burning sands of the Negev desert, reveal a horrifying ancient human trafficking network." In the heart of the arid Negev desert, where one would expect nothing but scorching winds, rocks, and sand, archaeologists have stumbled upon a story so unsettling that it leaves one speechless. Not a grand temple, not a cache of gold or silver, but a burial site containing at least 50 human remains, dated to approximately 2,500 years ago. What makes this discovery even more chilling is that all initial evidence points toward a disturbing possibility. These may be the remains of women who were trafficked in ancient times. The burial site lies deep within the Negev desert, at an ancient crossroads once traveled by merchant caravans from multiple cultures. This was a vital trade route connecting Egypt to the Wadi Araba, southern Jordan, and the Arabian Peninsula, a corridor through which goods, resources, and even people were exchanged. For that reason, it appears no coincidence that this location was chosen as a burial ground. When archaeologists examined the site more closely, they discovered two large burial chambers, entirely different from the circular graves commonly found in the Negev. These chambers are square in shape, one measuring roughly 23 by 23 feet and the other about 15 by 15 feet. According to Tali Erickson Genie of the Israel Antiquities Authority, this type of burial chamber has never before been documented in the region. Most notably, the graves are not associated with any nearby settlement. So why were the dead buried in a place with no village in sight? The answer may lie in ancient belief systems. For people of the past, crossroads were not merely places of passage. They were considered sacred spaces where the human world and the spiritual realm intersected. Burial at such locations may have held ritual significance, or may have served as a way to place souls that did not belong to any recognized community. And the objects found within the graves make the story even clearer. Inside the two burial chambers, archaeologists uncovered iron and copper alloy jewelry, ceramic vessels, and cowrie shells, cypraea, originating from the Red Sea. These were not ordinary decorative items. In many ancient cultures, cowrie shells were believed to ward off evil spirits and bring good fortune, and they were strongly associated with women. These details have led archaeologists to favor the hypothesis that the remains belonged to adult women. But why were so many women buried together in cold, isolated chambers in the middle of the desert? Researchers believe these women may have been victims of human trafficking. They may have been purchased in Gaza or Egypt, then transported along ancient trade routes into Arabia, where they were sold as brides, sex slaves, or for use in religious rituals. This theory is not mere speculation. Numerous ancient records, including Minoan inscriptions from Yemen, explicitly mention the trade of women in this region during antiquity. There is another haunting detail as well: the positioning of the remains. Some skeletons show signs of having been moved from their original placement, as if to make room for additional bodies. This suggests that the burial site was not used only once, but remained active over an extended period of time. At present, experts are working to conserve and stabilize the site, hoping that further analysis will shed light on the identities, origins, and fates of these women. And now, let me ask you something. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? That when we look at these silent remains lying beneath the desert sands, we cannot help but wonder, in the glittering flow of ancient trade and commerce, how many lives were bought, sold, and erased without a voice? If this discovery made you think, let me know in the comments below this video. More than 80 stripped skeletons reveal a chilling burial ritual in France. Hidden near the tranquil waters of Lac du Bourget in the Savoie region of France, an ancient cemetery recently uncovered by archaeologists has sent chills through the research community, not because of its sheer size, but because of how the dead were laid to rest. And the French National Institute for Preventive Archaeological Research, INRAP, has confirmed the discovery of more than 80 graves, forming the largest and most significant cemetery ever excavated in Savoie to date. Initial analyses indicate that the cemetery dates back to the 7th century, during the Merovingian period, the dynasty of the Franks, which ruled from the mid-5th century until AD 751. This was a time of major transformation in Europe, especially following King Clovis I's conversion to Christianity, which gradually reshaped burial customs in accordance with the new faith. The first detail that caught archaeologists' attention was the position of the bodies. Every skeleton was laid with the face oriented toward the east. In early Christianity, this was no coincidence. The dead were positioned facing Jerusalem, symbolizing their intithar for the resurrection. This suggests that the cemetery marks a clear shift away from earlier, more diverse burial practices toward a more unified Christian ritual. But the deeper researchers dug, the stranger the picture became. Jean-Luc Gisclon, an archaeologist and anthropologist with INRAP, explained that the arm bones of many skeletons protruded slightly upward and inward, as if the bodies had been held in an unstable position. Based on the traces left behind, the research team believes that wooden structures were once placed inside the graves to stabilize the bodies during burial. This indicates that the burials were carried out deliberately, following a precise and consistent pattern. However, the most disturbing detail lay elsewhere. When examining the graves closely, archaeologists found almost no clothing or grave goods. Only a few scraps of fabric and extremely small pieces of jewelry were recovered, far too little to represent any specific social class. Julian Blanco, another archaeologist and anthropologist with INRAP, stated plainly that these individuals were most likely stripped of their clothing before burial. What is striking is that this practice appears to have ignored age and social status entirely. Young or old, rich or poor, everyone met the same fate: burial in a nearly naked state. This has made it exceptionally difficult for scientists to determine the social identities of the deceased. Normally, Merovingian graves reflect social status through burial goods, but here, nearly all such indicators have been erased. So why was such a harsh burial ritual practiced? For now, the answer remains unclear. One hypothesis suggests that removing clothing and possessions reflected early Christian beliefs in equality before death. Another possibility is that the community experienced crisis conditions, such as famine, disease, or social upheaval, forcing burial practices to be reduced to their bare minimum. At present, INRAP hopes that further studies, including osteological analysis, DNA testing, and regional historical research, will help reconstruct the story behind this unusual cemetery. Until then, all we can do is wait and see what this silent ground will reveal next. 7,000-year-old skeleton discovered in a fetal position. In what appeared to be an entirely ordinary town square in Słomniki, near Krakow, Poland, archaeologists unexpectedly uncovered a trace that seems to gently shift our understanding of history itself. During infrastructure renovation work, beneath layers of soil thought to contain only modern bricks and rubble, they discovered a nearly complete human skeleton, its arms and legs tightly drawn in, curled exactly like a fetus in the womb. And most remarkably, this set of remains had lain undisturbed beneath the ground for approximately 7,000 years. According to reports from ancient origins, the skeleton was unearthed alongside numerous fragments of pottery scattered around it. Based on the distinctive style of these ceramic pieces, archaeologists identified them as belonging to the linear pottery culture, LBK, one of the earliest farming cultures in Europe. Paweł Micik, the archaeologist directly overseeing the excavation in Słomniki, stated that based on current evidence, the remains likely date to around the 6th millennium BC. But that is not all. One of the aspects that has particularly astonished researchers is the skeleton's near-perfect state of preservation. This was not the result of any embalming technique, but rather a rare set of natural conditions. The individual had been buried in loose, well-aerated soil with non-acidic chemical properties, unintentionally creating a natural storage chamber that preserved the body for thousands of years. As a result, individual bones and joints remain intact, allowing scientists to clearly observe both the burial posture and the method of interment. At present, the identity of the individual remains unknown. Was this a man or a woman, a child or an adult, a member of a particular family or social group? All of these questions remain unanswered. However, Paweł Micik noted that a physical anthropologist will soon examine the skeleton, which may reveal the individual's sex, age, and even health conditions during life. At the same time, the research team plans to conduct radiocarbon dating to determine more precisely when this person lived. In addition to the skeleton and pottery, researchers also found fragments of flint, a common material in the Neolithic period, typically used to make tools or simple weapons. Not everything, however, has survived intact. The upper portion of the grave had been leveled during earlier construction activities, causing some grave goods to be damaged or lost entirely. Even so, the significance of this discovery cannot be overstated. Professor Małgorzata Kot, an archaeology expert at the University of Warsaw, described the find as extremely important. According to her, the grave likely belonged to some of the earliest Neolithic farmers, people who crossed the Carpathian Mountains from the south and arrived in what is now Poland around the 6th millennium BC. Yet the detail that has captured scientists' attention most strongly is the fetal burial position itself. This was almost certainly not a random choice, but one that may reflect deep beliefs about life, death, and rebirth. In many ancient cultures, the fetal position symbolized a return to Mother Earth. representing a closed cycle of human existence. In reality, we still know very little about the burial customs of these early farming communities. Sometimes they buried their dead within settlements, other times in separate cemeteries, but such cemeteries are extremely rare. For this reason, every skeleton discovered is like a precious puzzle piece, helping us better understand how prehistoric people viewed life and death. And perhaps, from a single skeleton that lay silent for 7,000 years, an entire story will slowly emerge of the first people who planted seeds, built villages, and laid the foundations for modern Europe. If that's the case, it truly is fascinating, isn't it? The giant stone sphere in the forests of Bosnia, a 1,000-year-old mystery with no answer. There is an object that makes anyone who sees it in person pause for a few seconds and ask, who created this? Deep in a dense forest near the town of Zavidovici, Bosnia, stands a massive stone sphere, almost perfectly round, with a diameter of approximately 10 feet, weighing tens of tons, and containing an unusually high amount of iron. And as you can imagine, the appearance of such an astonishingly precise stone sphere in the middle of untouched wilderness was bound to ignite countless theories almost instantly. The man who brought this sphere to public attention was Dr. Samir Osmanagic, a Bosnian archaeologist. From the very beginning, he claimed that the sphere was not a random product of nature, but rather a creation of ancient humans. According to Osmanagic, the stone sphere may be evidence of a highly developed civilization that once lived in this region and mysteriously disappeared around 1,500 years ago. At this point, many people naturally ask, what kind of civilization could possibly create such a perfectly shaped stone sphere in the middle of rugged forests and mountains? That question becomes even harder to ignore when we learn that this was not the only sphere. In the past, Bosnia was known to have multiple similar stone spheres, scattered across the region well into the 20th century. However, during the 1970s, most of them were destroyed after rumors spread that gold could be found inside. As a result, potentially crucial evidence may have been lost forever. Samir Osmanagic is no stranger to controversy in archaeology. In 2005, he made international headlines by claiming that the hills in the Visoko Valley were actually ancient pyramids, connected by an underground tunnel system. While much of the global scientific community expressed skepticism, arguing that these interpretations were exaggerated, the Bosnian government nevertheless chose to fund the excavation project. At the time, Bosnia's Prime Minister, Nedjad Brankovic, publicly defended the project with a statement that sparked debate, saying in essence, "I know the world will not believe us, but we still have to do this." This political support meant that Osmanagic's theories, controversial as they were, could not be completely ignored. However, by 2016, criticism once again intensified. Mandy Edwards, a scientist from the University of Manchester, argued that the Zavidovici stone sphere was not man-made at all, but a natural geological formation. According to her, under certain conditions, minerals, especially iron, can gradually accumulate around a stone core over thousands of years, forming near-spherical shapes through natural processes. As a result, two opposing viewpoints continue to exist side by side. On one side are those who believe the sphere is a remnant of a lost ancient civilization, possessing stoneworking techniques far beyond what we usually imagine. On the other are those who argue that this is simply nature at work, and that humans are projecting too much meaning onto it. To this day, no evidence has been strong enough to put an end to the debate. Scientists continue to analyze the sphere's composition, structure, and surrounding geological context. And for those who love exploration and mystery, this story retains a strange and powerful appeal. Because sometimes, the most fascinating thing about archaeology is not the answers, but the questions it forces us to ask. So what about you? Do you lean toward the theory of a forgotten civilization, or do you believe nature still holds enough power to deceive us? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As for me, no matter which side one takes, the giant stone sphere hidden in the forests of Bosnia has undoubtedly become one of the great mysteries that continues to challenge our imagination and knowledge to this very day. 3,000-year-old megalithic temple, dedicated to the water god in Peru. In the arid Zanja Valley of northwestern Peru, where water was once more precious than gold, archaeologists have once again uncovered a mystery that immediately captures the imagination. It is the mystery of a 3,000-year-old megalithic temple, built not to display power or glorify warriors, but to worship water, the vital element that determined the survival of an entire ancient community. The temple was discovered at the Huaca El Toro archaeological site, located in what is now the Ocomtun region. What has particularly drawn researchers' attention is that this is the first megalithic temple ever found in the Zanya Valley. Its location is exceptionally significant. It sits precisely at the point where two rivers converge to form the Zanya River, resembling a sacred crossroads deliberately chosen by ancient people. According to archaeologist Edgar Bracamonte, the builders of the temple may have belonged to an ancient water-worshipping cult, closely associated with fertility and agricultural rituals. At that time, water was far from easily accessible. There were no dams, no modern irrigation systems, and every river or underground spring was considered a divine gift. Building a temple at the place where a river is born may have symbolized territorial control, while also expressing faith that the water deity would continue to bless the community. What's more, archaeologists discovered small wells surrounding the temple, believed to have been used to monitor water levels and predict the rainy season. This detail alone reveals just how keenly ancient people observed nature. To them, water was not merely a resource, it was the very soul of life. Architecturally, the temple is truly astonishing. It was constructed from large stone blocks of varying sizes, carefully carved and transported from the surrounding mountains, approximately 1.9 miles away. In an era without wheels or modern tools, the ability to move and assemble such massive stones demonstrates an extraordinary level of organization and technical skill. The temple did not exist briefly and then vanish. Excavations show that it went through three distinct phases of occupation. The first phase dates from around 1500 to 800 BCE, when inhabitants built cone-shaped clay foundations. The second phase, from 800 to 400 BCE, marked the emergence of megalithic architecture, influenced by the pre-Inca Chavin civilization. In the third phase, from 400 to 100 BCE, round columns were added to support the temple's roof, indicating that the structure continued to be modified and actively used. Around 250 BCE, the temple was gradually abandoned. But the story does not end there. Around 1300 CE, the Chumi people returned and repurposed the site as a burial ground. In total, 21 graves were discovered inside the temple, 20 belonging to the Chumi people, and one older grave of an adult man from the formative period. This individual was buried along an east-west orientation, accompanied by a double-spouted ceramic vessel with a handle, an artifact carrying special ritual significance. Excavations took place from September to November of the previous year, but this was only the beginning. Researchers are currently analyzing samples in laboratories, hoping to piece together more clues about belief systems, rituals, and how ancient Peruvians interacted with the natural world. Who knows, perhaps from a single temple dedicated to water, we may yet uncover an entire spiritual world that has lain dormant for 3,000 years in the heart of the Zanya Valley. Do you see it the same way I do? The Crystal Pyramid beneath the Bermuda Sea, a 2,000-year-old secret and the curse of the Devil's Triangle. When the Bermuda Triangle is mentioned, many of us immediately think of an eerie stretch of ocean where airplanes and ships seem to vanish without a trace. For centuries, Bermuda has been synonymous with the word mystery, leaving scientists puzzled and ordinary people uneasy whenever its stories are retold. But the story becomes even more unbelievable with the emergence of a shocking hypothesis that a massive crystal pyramid, around 2,000 years old, lies beneath the waters of the Bermuda Triangle. According to widely circulated claims, this pyramid stands firmly on the seafloor like a structure far beyond the imagination of modern humans. What truly startles many people is the suggestion that this very pyramid may be directly connected to the mysterious disappearances of aircraft and ships passing through the Bermuda Triangle. Although the hypothesis first gained attention in 2012, it continues to trouble many researchers to this day, as it has never been scientifically verified. Based on descriptions, the Crystal Pyramid is said to have a base measuring approximately 980 feet in length, with a total height of up to 656 feet. The portion from the base to the peak alone is estimated to be about 328 feet tall. Most astonishing of all, the entire structure is believed to lie only about 10 feet beneath the ocean's surface and is said to be 3 times larger than the Great Pyramid of Cheops in Egypt. one of the greatest architectural achievements in human history. Just hearing this is enough to make one think that if such a structure truly exists, human history might have to be rewritten from scratch. Dr. Meyer Verlag, one of the strongest supporters of this theory, claims that the pyramid was constructed from crystal using a special technology that modern science cannot yet explain. According to him, these crystal structures may generate a strange form of energy capable of directly affecting the surrounding environment. He believes that deeper exploration inside the pyramid could uncover clues linked to the mysterious disappearances that have plagued the Bermuda Triangle for centuries. Sharing this belief, Nigel Watson, author of UFO Investigations Manual and a longtime researcher of unexplained phenomena, has stated that the underwater pyramid contains countless secrets humanity has yet to uncover. He suggests that the crystal formations within the pyramid may produce a mysterious force capable of disrupting navigation systems and even interfering with Earth's magnetic field, causing aircraft and ships to lose their way and vanish. However, the story is not purely mystical. Many scientists remain deeply skeptical of these claims. To date, no scientific records, survey footage, or precise coordinates of the alleged crystal pyramid have been publicly released. As a result, many believe the story is simply exaggerated or even fabricated by certain authors seeking public attention. Even so, the Bermuda Triangle itself remains a major enigma. Located in the northwestern Atlantic Ocean, it is defined by 3 points: Bermuda, Puerto Rico, and an area near Melbourne. Since 1851, approximately 8,127 people are said to have gone missing in this region. In addition, the area is notorious for its unusual magnetic anomalies, which can cause compasses to spin erratically, as well as frequent waterspouts, especially during the summer months, with wind speeds reaching up to 118 miles per hour. So in the end, is the Crystal Pyramid beneath the Bermuda Sea a buried truth, or merely a modern legend dressed in scientific language? Perhaps until humans truly descend to the ocean floor and return with undeniable evidence, the Bermuda Triangle will forever remain the Devil's Triangle, a place where the boundary between science and the supernatural stays disturbingly blurred. So, together we've explored some of the most shocking archaeological discoveries, secrets that have remained hidden for thousands of years. As you can see, every discovery opens up an entirely new world, full of surprises and strange wonders, pushing even the most brilliant scientists to pause and reflect. This shows that, despite the many advances in historical and archaeological research, some of the biggest questions still have no clear answers. So let's look forward to the next discoveries. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any fascinating stories from ancient history. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.